Alright, we are live. Welcome back, guys, to the channel, to the stream. We have an interesting change of pace today. We have with us today a member of the Legacy of Kain community, and I'm conducting an interview with him. His name is Freezer. Thank you so much for your time. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, it's great.
So, I guess to sort of start off this interview, how did you first sort of come across the Legacy of Kain community?
The community itself or the games?
I suppose to start off with the community.
So the community came because I was creating a roleplay game based on Legacy of Kain.
No way.
And and when I did that, all of a sudden I got an invite to the server and people were like, oh yeah, you should join here, you'll get more contacts with Legacy of Kain fans. And I was like, what? There's actually a big enough community?
Yeah.
Because I'm into a lot of like very niche subjects, so I very rarely find someone who knows the same things that I know. So then I joined the community like I want to say like 2 years ago, and so far my game's pretty fleshed out and people have had a lot of fun with it. It's fun role play. But
Oh, that's sick. So, could you tell me a bit more about the game itself?
It's dice roll. I just do 2d6 dice because just about anyone's got those. And I created everything from scratch, got the live streams on to show it, how like my thought process was that I created everything.
So
Took a bit of influences from all the video games and just put them in there, but the setting itself is supposed to be like before Soul Reaver 1. So you're basically playing in Kain's Empire, where we don't know anything about it. So you could just create your own adventure. Oh, I ruled a castle so-and-so. And then 1,000 years later, my guy devolved into some... Okay, that's cool. Do your own thing. And that was my goal with that.
I see. So it's a pen and paper sort of Legacy of Kain role-playing setting and rule set.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay, I thought it was the way you're describing it, possibly like an indie video game, that type of thing.
No. I'm not a software kind of person.
Okay, no, that's cool. So, is this like an unofficial? Is it called like Legacy of Kain RPG? Did you give it a certain name? Nosgoth.
I just called it World of Nosgoth. That's
World
all I
of
call it.
Nosgoth. Okay, no, that's aptly named. So when did you start work on that project? Was it after coming into the Legacy of Kain community?
It was before. It's how I found out about it.
Oh, I see. So
that's kind of how that's spurred.
In terms of
There's a website. I'm trying to find the link. Sorry, I know I keep interrupting you. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. No, so I feel like I'm interrupting you. My bad. But in terms of, I suppose, did you go on the sort of fan sites growing up? Oh, here we go. Nice. The only Freezer. Oh, that's you on Twitch. Awesome.
Yeah, I pretty much just stay with Freezer on most of my accounts, but I use Google to just have all my codexes on there. I was having some issues with it where if you click on one link, it asks for permission to open the file, so that's why there's double posts. So if it does work for you, great. If not, you'll have the other version, which is like a website.
No, this is fantastic.
And my advice is to do Control F. And Control F pops up like a little search bar, and you could type in a specific word. Because it's like 27 pages per codex. I really thought this thing out after like 2 years of hard work. So if you've got a question like,
like Sarafan, for example. Sarafan, if I pop in Sarafan, okay, it's not coming up with anything, but maybe there's a word that you can think of.
Serafan's a trait. I made that a trait. It's like a faction trait that you get, so it'd be in the trait page.
Okay, so if I wanted to look it up, I would Control F this site and then go trait, and it's giving me why play. This is really extensive. So you've been working on this for a while then?
Oh yeah.
So how many years would you say?
Two.
2 years. And
So yeah, the traits page is actually inside any of the codexes. The three codexes are there. Then there's a techniques page, but there's also magic spells page, which is its own separate, like 4 pages of spells that are specifically unique to each race.
because in terms of a pen and paper setting for this the rule set as well, did it require like extensive playtesting with community members, maybe some of your other RPG friends, and
Oh yes, yeah,
yeah.
and that's where it was really nice to get in contact because like all I did was live streamed on YouTube. That's all I did. I just went,
Oh, okay.
let me just do a live stream, and all I titled it was World of Nosgoth,
Mm.
creating a D&D / roleplay game for Legacy of Kain. That's all I titled it. I had like 1,000 people pop in just out of nowhere. I didn't know so many people were waiting for such a thing.
Mm.
I was full on expecting it to only get like 10 views. Wasn't expecting 1,000. And next thing I know, people were like, "Yeah, I'll play." And now people actually like play the actual game. And it's really cool. And it just kind of got out of beta because I finally worked out a lot of the kinks.
So, are you constantly updating the rule set, or would you say
That's
like?
why I like the Google because it automatically updates. Yeah, nice.
Okay, because yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm gonna ask you now, because I'm quite familiar with tabletop RPGs over the years. But like one of the first ones I tried out or wanted to run was Vampire. Funnily enough, Vampire the Masquerade, back at
Yeah.
university. And I was gonna ask you, are you familiar with like Dark Ages Vampire, the World of Darkness setting? Did that come into play in terms of your creation of this game? And
So funny enough, I've played a lot of video game RPGs,
mm-hmm.
but I never actually done tabletop. And it's mostly because where I live, there's no one around me.
Mm-hmm.
I only had one single friend, and he and I would just play Warhammer tabletop. That's
I
not
see.
role playing.
But you have the
And
vampire counts, don't you, in the fantasy part of that?
oh no, actually I'm an orc guy.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
like
just
to
feel like
mess around with stuff.
maybe you know poured through those old books to get some, because you can get inspiration from anywhere for this kind of stuff, can't you? There's flavor which could potentially come into your the RPG that you've been working on.
Yeah, you probably already noticed it, but every faction has like different clans. Even the
Yes,
humans and the Hilden have their own clans, and I have like the 9 questions in case you don't know what you want to do. So just go through the 9 questions, tally up your results. That's what you get.
I see.
You don't have to, of course, but you could.
Mm-hmm.
But after I created this game, I said it during the stream too. I was like, I've never played this. I've only played video games, but I understand how video games work. So I'm trying to create my own thing.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
then because I got exposed to this, someone sent me an invite to a World of Darkness server, and that's when I realized something really funny. I thought I had never touched World of Darkness. Turns out
Right.
I have, and I didn't
Ah,
know it.
was that way
There's
back in the
a
day?
X Yeah, there's an Xbox video game called Hunter the Reckoning. I didn't know that that was part of World of Darkness.
Ah, yeah, yeah. Because it's that name convention, isn't it? It's always something. There's something. For
Yeah,
those, yeah.
and and that was fun. And then I just recently, I want to say like maybe a year ago, I completed Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. That was a fun game.
Nice. Yeah, yeah. I know a lot of people. That goes on people's lists of like greatest RPG of all time for certain people, and
I'm sorry, what?
you know, you know, for certain people, it's like the greatest RPG of all time. Like certain people consider it that.
So there are issues.
Yeah, like
So
it's
this
not
is
the best of the
where
best, but I know you know it's on certain lists. You know, alongside Planescape Torment, those older CRPGs that you know.
so one of the big issues I saw in Vampire the Masquerade or World of Darkness, if you want, is that it's not really geared for combat. So if you want like this extensive combat system, it is not. But if you want an extensive social system, it is very good at that.
I agree. Yeah, it's more of a social system.
Now, Legacy of Kain is very action based. Yes, there's really good speeches and dialogue in the universe, but majority of the time it's an action game. So
I completely
when
agree.
people say that they just use World of Darkness but they reskin it for Legacy of Kain, I don't understand how they're doing it or why they're doing it. That's why my system's a little bit better, in my opinion. I'm the guy who created it. But it's also because my system's more combat oriented.
So, did you stumble upon anyone else who kind of had a similar idea? Because I know there are more, more and more that you see. The established settings. There's official ones, but I'm sure, there's unofficial ones as well. I've never seen an official rule set for Legacy of Kain, but have you come across other sort of unofficial ways of doing this combat system and RPG system?
No. As far as I know, people just reskin Vampire the Masquerade and they're just happy with that. And they choose whatever edition they like the most.
I see. Because that's what I've considered with a setting like Legacy of Kain is, in my head I've been like, if I'm going to run this game, I'm going to use Dark Ages Vampire because it's medieval, gritty, and, there's no technology there. There's no, like, guns or more modern technology like phones. It's very much low fantasy. So, but I'm intrigued
Yeah,
about your
and
RPG. So yeah, feel free to continue. Sorry.
no, you're fine. The thing with my system was I wanted it to be as simple as possible. I didn't want like a bunch of numbers because like I don't want it to be like World of Warcraft where you hit a guy for like 10,999 fireball. Like, no, I'm not doing that much math. I'm very stupid. Like, let's keep it simple. So I kept the numbers relatively low. The max level is 8 for vampires and Hilden, but it's 10 for humans. And then demons and mutants have infinite level scaling, but that's because they can't use items. So.
Okay, so in terms of your races, like say I was gonna roll a character, I'm guessing you have human, Hilden, vampire. I don't know if you would have, the more sort of like the wraith characters, like just appearing in the spectral realm, because
They do exist. You'd have to look at the vampire and the Hilden codex, but they are there. But they're more treated as monsters. They're not treated as living beings. So when you die as a vampire, you go straight to the spirit realm. And if you successfully kill a wraith, you get a nice benefit. If you just type death or whatever, it'll pop up.
okay.
I'll do it.
So in terms of like how you generate your characters, is it the kind of thing where you
Spend hours creating it? No.
is it very much like I pick race, I pick clan, I roll I don't know if it's like roll some d6, roll some d8s, and then
Nope.
Yeah,
It's
describe
very
the
simple.
system. Is it point by?
So what it is when you create a character, you select your clan after you select your race, obviously. And vampires, I would recommend for most beginners because they're very easy. They are very versatile. They don't have any debuffs. They're really nice. They're very versatile. So when you select your vampire, you go by Relum, Duma, him. Then from there, you look at your stats. There's only 5 stats: strength, endurance, perception, intelligence, and charisma. I did not put agility, and the reason
Or
why is
luck.
because that would complicate things a lot.
Or like a
Then
luck
we have your
stat?
character skins.
Because
I'm sorry, what?
I often feel like luck is sometimes a stat added to these games. I'm guessing you just wanted to go with just ones which made sense for you for this game.
Yeah, because the issue was damage calculation and your chances of hitting. I want to keep it very simple, very mathematically simple. You could add that to your system. You could say, I designed World of Nosgoth / The Reckoning, and that's your version of my rules. I'm okay with that. Go crazy, have fun. modify the rules however it suits you.
Hey,
But hey, Aqua.
just
But
arrived.
Hi.
but
Yes.
when you create your
So we
when
have
you create your character,
sorry.
you just select your clan, you look at your skills, and all you do is you either add a stat point and a skill point, or you just give yourself a trait. That's it.
Okay, that's interesting. Sorry, we have another member of the Discord joining. Welcome, Aqua. Thank you for joining.
Hello.
Sorry, I'm just putting your
Glad to
picture
be
up.
here. No problem.
So, yeah, we were just talking with Freezer here about they've actually done a tabletop RPG that they've made for 2 years, and I was just sort of quizzing them about that, but be interested to hear from yourself as well.
So I just talk about my history with Legacy of Kain, or what is this about? Just to know.
Yeah, basically. So I've just been asking Freezer about kind of his background in terms of Legacy of Kain stuff and hearing about his RPG that he's created. But I'd be interested to throw some questions your way as well. Like, how did you come across the Legacy of Kain community?
I would say, where do I begin? Of course, I would have to start with my history of the series. History with the series, I mean.
Sure.
All right. I feel like I have a very interesting history with the series, and a very, I wouldn't say a long one, considering I got into the series about 2 years ago. But I feel like my earliest actually knowing about the series was in a phase where I was really into watch Mojo videos. At least when I was in my early teens, I think. Yeah. I don't remember what video it was, but they did talk about how Legacy of Kain Soul River, and it did look interesting to me at the time, but I didn't look into it. But it wasn't until around late 2021 when I watched Slope's Game Room basically do an episode of Legacy of Kain. I was just, oh, what's this? And I thought it was interesting to check out. And, well, then I ended up checking out the series, or at least watch cutscenes first, because I used, especially back then, I tended to do that.
No, that makes sense.
And, yeah.
Because it is such a fantastic, incredible, rich story, and like the acting is fantastic, and obviously, so I'll let you continue and let Freezer go as well.
All right. I would say though, I have not had 100% experienced the entire story yet. I know, the way it started, I basically kind of experienced the story backwards in a way. I watched basically a second part of a cutscene compilation of Defiant specifically. That's what got me interested. I knew nothing about what was going on, but as the months go by, I was still very intrigued to check out the series. Though I felt mixed because, well, this wasn't something I was really into at the time, but it did grow on me.
Yeah.
But, of course, I do really know, but yeah. I think it was just the dark themes, and some of them got really heavy. But, of course, I did end up getting into the series because, yes, it's very interesting. It's a really dark, harsh world they live in. So, yeah, these topics would definitely be discussed just for that alone.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Did you have anything to add to that, Freezer? I suppose it's
I started with Blood Omen. That was like my intro to the series. It was mostly because my friend and we like old computer games, and in particular, we came across that, and we also came across, oh god, what was the Lords of the Realm? Oh, how could I forget it? Lords of the Realm made me want to kill myself. Oh my god. That game is so damn hard. But when we were playing Blood Omen 1, we were having a blast. We were like, oh my god, we just sucked the blood out of this person, and our guy's laughing. So we were enjoying it. And then Soul Reaver 1 came out, but I never had a PlayStation, but my friend did. I had an Xbox, so he and I would always come over to each other's houses and like play each other's consoles. So playing Soul Reaver 1 was a huge leap, and we took a while to figure out like, oh wait, these two games are connected, because mind you, we were kids, we were idiots. But once we realized the two were connected, we were like, oh my god, so this is the ending, this is like the canon ending. And it was just really cool, but at the same time, as like a young kid growing up, I was like, that's a huge time skip. We just went from like what, a 30-year-old man or a 20-year-old man turned into a vampire to now like, who knows, 2,000 years in the future, 3,000 years, who knows how far in the future it is. And he's the enemy. It's like, what? So when Soul Reaver 2 came out, and then Blood Omen 2, and then Defiant, I was just always like looking at it cautiously, like, how is this story going? How's the story progressing? And the main reason why is only because the setting has changed significantly. A lot of Legacy of Kain fans don't like Blood Omen 2, and they say that the setting is too weird, it's industrial, it's punkish. But to me, it seems like the setting changed almost every single game. Like, you got Blood Omen 1 that's super high fantasy. It comes off as like a D&D game, how fantasy it is. And then you got Soul Reaver 1, which is a super deep, dark, depressing, very minimal going on. You're not even really fighting the enemies, you're solving the puzzles. Like, these are very different games entirely. So when people complain about the setting in Blood Omen 2, I always find that kind of odd to critique.
Yeah. So, one other question I was gonna ask was kind of like, sort of like, we're all kind of, I'm in my early 30s. How old are you guys?
27.
23.
Yeah, because in terms of when you first got introduced to it, I was probably, I want to say maybe 10 years old, around that sort of age, maybe a bit older. And just, I remember being like so scared by Soul Reaver, the opening cutscene, and like everything that went involved there. And even like the menus and stuff, they like creeped me out. But then as you got a little older and like, Soul Reaver 2 came out and everything, I don't know, you get older, so you get more sort of, I guess it's like an increased fascination for this new stuff, or the acting, and it scares you less and becomes more just awesome. So I don't know if what I was going to ask was kind of like your guys' opinions of that, if you kind of felt that a little bit in terms of the series, or were you just like, this is awesome, I'm not scared of this?
As a kid, I watched a lot of horror movies that I probably shouldn't have been. Like, I watched all the Evil Deads when I was only like, what, 7? I love Evil Dead. But I watched like, Return of the Living Dead, Night of the Living Dead series. Like, I watched a lot of horror movies. So when it comes to like a horrifying video game, I don't come at it with fear. I usually come at it with interest.
I would say I was never really the biggest horror person personally, but, well, me being a Five Nights at Freddy's fan is at least something, but that's also because, and that's also one of the reasons I love, well, Legacy of Kain as much as I do. There's just such an interesting story to be told, and it was definitely told very interestingly, even though to a lot of people, and Dark Prophecy and such being, well, cancelled before they began development, or at least the progress was never continued and finished. It's still so interesting to see and experience everything, even though I haven't fully checked out everything as of now. But
Yeah, it's a massive shame about that Dark Prophecy game. I think a lot of people were hyped, and you hear from like certain YouTubers and people who comment on the game, and one I remember hearing from them is kind of like, it was going to continue, and it was going to be Kain trying to find the Elder God and kind of find out the other little nests that he's in, and go slashing at those tentacles, and find a way to kind of fully remove him from Nosgoth, or at least, I don't know, reach his defeat trying. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
I found it to be very interesting, especially since, well, yeah, we would definitely continue the story of Kain trying to, well, defeat the Elder God once and for all and everything else that was planned too. I know I particularly find the ideas of meeting more Hilden was particularly interesting, to the point I even drew them, because I found them so cool and interesting, especially the concepts and everything. And of
Yep.
course, yeah.
The thing I have, I'm sorry, Aqua, you continue. Go
That's
on.
okay. But yeah. Not to mention, I find it interesting how we're gonna have Kain meeting himself from the past, and maybe he, especially knowing how the series continues plot threads that were originally going to be in specific games, but continue and, well, change but still do something different and unique with as the series goes on. Like how Terrell was originally being in Soul Reaver 1, but then they put him in Defiance, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
They probably would have even explained why Vorador was resurrected in Blood Omen 2 even. Since, again, another her thing that was going to be in Defiance, but of course he took it out because maybe it would have been reviving two characters in one game. That's what I meant to say. But yeah.
I always
That's all
thought
I
the
was going to
idea of
say.
like a Vorador game would be quite interesting, but there's so many cool ideas. I don't know, kind of what you guys think about that, as having a Vorador protagonist, you're playing as him, as opposed to those titular characters of Kain and Raziel.
The main thing about Legacy of Kain is that it's a gothic setting. And gothic setting is all about turning pain into beauty. Now, one of the interesting ideas, though, about you saying the Vorador thing is that I would love to see it where Vorador grows very attached to certain vampires, and we see him like nurture these people, make them like really astounding characters. You literally just can't see life without them. And then you go back in the other Soul Reaver games and you realize, oh my god, Raziel, that corpse you just passed, I recognized it. It's her from Vorador's game. Or, oh my god, Vorador, how the hell do you sit in your mansion? You just watch that person you had such great memories with get staked right outside your goddamn house. No wonder why you butchered everybody. That
So
would like piss me off too.
So it's kind of
But
like
that would be a very
attaching
captivating game.
more of a feeling of empathy towards, like, you know, just, you know, background NPCs or background kind of corpses, or you know, people that you go past, you don't even think too much about in terms of when you're going through those environments. Is that kind of what you're saying? It's kind of like more cutscenes of like actually commenting on, you know, some of these other kind of like NPCs you may see, or side characters.
Yes, and the reason why is because I think the big issue is that a lot of times people can look at a tragedy and they just see the numbers, they just see the pictures, and they just go, oh, okay, you know, this happened. But a tragedy really strikes your heart and it really makes you teary-eyed when you recognize the bodies and you know the humanity behind these photos.
Yeah.
So I think that would be really, really nice, would be to see a Vorador game. And mind you, this is a reworked Vorador. The original Vorador in Blood Omen 1 was a hedonistic guy who just basically sex slave. This is the reworked one, the one where he actually is a fatherly figure for these vampires. He's very caring. So it'd be nice to see him like come to a village and he sees a woman just desperately trying to pull a kid out of a well, but she can't do it. And the village calls her like a murderer and stuff, and he just comes in while she's being executed and just picks her up and says, you did everything right. You're a decent human being. Let me take you away from these savages. And he grows her up and stuff. And then you go back to Soul Reaver 2 and you go, oh my god, she's the one the Seraphan pigs were gloating about, saying that they loved spilling her entrails out. Oh my god.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know what you think about that idea, Aqua, because it does sound interesting. It's a different take on the character, which
I would definitely say it's very interesting, especially since, yeah, with all these differences, even though it were very different development teams with very different ideas for the characters, I would say this is definitely something, because Vorador is so interesting and layered as a character. Yeah, he may be a terrible person with a lot of things he's done, but there's also a lot of good things to him as well. Because, yeah, he does definitely take care of those in need in a way. And yeah, a lot of people probably do think it's very weird. I went from a hedonist to a more caring guy in Blood Diamond 2, at least from what I've seen. But yeah, part of me does kind of feel, yeah, that does feel like something Warder would do, though, in a way. And that's aside from, I find so interesting, especially with a spin-off game idea. I think in the original team with Silicon Knight, they even talked about, well, the team at Silicon Knights. I just want to correct myself because I think I said it wrong. But yeah, I think they even thought about an idea of having a Ward or a spin-off, which I especially think is interesting considering, yeah, that's their version of Ward, or before he was reworked and made into a bit of a different character, especially when Crystal Dynamics took a bit more of a control of the series and Amy Henning came in.
Yes.
And of course, having to do with Blood Diamond 2 having a different team and things having to be reworked again because, yeah.
And we're all big fans of Hennig's work, right? Like the scripts for these games, not just the script, but also the actors which play the roles. It's like some of the best acting I've seen in games. Like I'll go as far as to say that, especially on PS1, PS2 era.
One of the things that she does really well with characters, at least, is that there's a good capture of intellectualism that a lot of times people wished that they had it in their own lives and their own personality. But bottom line is, it's not realistic, but it is believable. And that's this Shakespearean thing where people are able to separate themselves from their actions. Like Kain, he does so well, we very rarely get emotion. Everything he says is very knowledge based, very intellectual. There doesn't seem to be a single thought that comes out of his mouth that isn't well thought. And that's something that obviously isn't realistic, but when you're watching and you're listening to him, it just feels like honey pouring in your ears. It just feels beautiful to listen to, no matter how many times, no matter how many dialogues you hear, no matter the fact that you can guess what he's saying, it still sounds.
Yeah, like I completely agree with you. They just nailed it. Like Simon Templeman, his portrayal it's just great. And likewise with I don't want to forget his name. Michael Bell. Yeah, Michael Bell. Got it. Michael Bell is just fantastic as well, and the man who played the Elder God. Tony J. Got there in the end. Fantastic portrayals for these characters, and that's also part of what makes it kind of like sad talking about Legacy of Kain, because it's been dormant for so long. You've had little sort of nuggets here and there, like with, I think one of the last things I saw for Legacy of Kain after Defiance, which really excited me, was I think it was in a Lara Croft top-down Tomb Raider game. They were guest characters, and I was like, oh, there's potentially still some hope for the revival of the series. But as you guys probably know about like Nosgoth and everything, so I guess I throw it back to you both as kind of your own sort of feelings on that. Maybe you kind of share that opinion with me. But I guess to word the question in a better way, I suppose, did you find Nosgoth, that MMO that came out, to be unsatisfying like I did? And these kind of guest appearances?
I don't know, just wondering. Yeah, because I technically had everything I had to say about Kain at that moment. he's such a very interesting and layered character, and yeah.
Oh, I think you may have cut out for a second then, guys. Sorry. Would you be able to repeat kind of slightly what you said? I think we got a bit of it. I think were you guys just answering my question?
Yeah, Wait, were there technical issues or what happened?
I think just for a second, because I didn't. I heard the last part of what you were saying and then a little bit of what Frieza said, but.
Oh.
I think it's okay
I have
now.
to explain everything all over again, apparently.
Sorry, I guess like maybe
Yeah.
just in a slightly different way, if that's okay.
All right, I may have to rephrase some of the things I said too.
Sorry.
I just think Kain is just so. It's okay. Because Kain is just such an interesting character to me, especially with how he was in Blood Omen 1. From him basically coming back as a vampire just to get revenge on his killers, already technically being beaten down and everything, considering he had to escape from his, where he originally came from, Korhagen, yes, that's the place.
Yes.
I forgot for a bit.
Yep.
Yeah. And, just all from that to then getting way more than he bargained for when he's given the task of killing the Pillar Guardians just to purify the pillars and have Noskov have his life come back, basically, as it's already dying. And everything in between as well, from teaming up with the Kingdom of Willendorf, and especially with the favor to the other king saving his daughter and dealing with the dollmaker Elzevir.
The dollmaker, yeah. I was about to say
I think
the
that's his name, right? Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. And then, after her finding out Mortanius was the one who killed Ariel, and of course dealing with that problem, of course she presents to him that he's the last guardian, being the new Pillar Guardian after her, the Guardian of Balance. And of course he's given either the choice of sacrificing himself and saving the world, or staying alive and dooming the world in the process. And yeah, especially with the fact that he's the last of his kind, and of course he didn't exactly want to take the fact that he was manipulated for most of the game. Well, of course he just took the option of staying alive and taking over everything, and take what Vorador said to heart, with being dark gods who have sheep to take care of, basically.
Yeah, that was really cool. Did you think that
yeah,
both
and I find
endings
it so interesting
made sense?
the fact that, yeah?
Sorry.
Hmm?
I was just going to ask that. Did you think that both endings kind of made sense to both of you? Kind of, canonically it makes sense.
So
Soul Reaver 1, it goes into that he would deny it and be like, I'm not sacrificing myself, and thus Soul Reaver 1.
yeah, so that was kind of the big thing that I enjoyed about Soul Reaver 1 and Soul Reaver 2 was that it explored morality, the relativistic of morality. How, yes, it seems like a good guy option. You get rid of vampires, you stop killing people, the world is saved. But then Kain really asks you this really hard-pressed question, which is that really the good option? And then you, as the player, have to really sit there and go, shit, is that really the good option? And the answer is no, because it turns out there's much more going on than just simply good or evil. There's something much bigger than just you. It's something that you have to remove yourself from to really see what's going on. And I do find that interesting, because, like, I was going to just, roll my eyes if they were just simply going to go the whole, mwahaha, I'm a big bad evil guy, like, route. But they didn't. They went this really complicated story that's really well fleshed out. Yeah.
It made sense. And kind of after him talking to Vorador, it's you can tell in his head, because it's kind of the monologuing in his head. He's kind of like, yeah, you might be right. He's more leaning more in that direction.
So the big thing though is that people need to look at Blood Omen 1 and then Soul Reaver 1. Raziel and Kain had the exact same start. So every time when there's a story, there's always a theme, whether it's man versus himself, man versus nature, blah blah blah, a whole lot of themes. But the way you create your story based on a theme always starts with a call to adventure. Raziel and Kain both rejected it. Kain was being told, like, I will allow you to be a vampire, you can go out into the world. And he's like, no, I just want to kill the people who killed me, and that's it. But he was dragged on the adventure because he had no choice. Raziel's much the same case. He rejected the Elder God. He's like, I'd rather just die. Just let me just die. And the Elder God's like, no, you got to kill your brothers. Look at what they did. And it's really interesting to see this, how that parallels out, where they both refuse the call to adventure. And then once their adventure almost...
Oh, I think you cut out after the call to adventure. Sorry. Oh, that is annoying because I was hanging on your words then. Can you guys hear me?
I just find it really interesting, especially with the endings of Blood Omen 1, how they handled it and how the series went forward. Because I find it so interesting because it's not every day the bad ending is canon as well. I find this to be so unique and interesting, especially considering the story and how it continued and how, well, I always think relating to Legacy of Kain and the story from the characters and what they do and everything to do with time travel and how every action they take has its consequences, and I find that so interesting too. So it feels like a rare case with a good ending. Yeah, he would have chosen to sacrifice himself and save the world basically, but he ended up not doing so because, yeah, he didn't, because of the reasons we talked about. So yeah. And yeah, it just feels more interesting how the bad ending was not only canon, but also how the story continued onwards. And even intently speaking, as considering the kind of story Silicon 98's words we're trying to say, basically. And I found that so interesting, especially with how they would continue things potentially moving forward if they kept working on the series themselves. But of course, we live in a reality where that didn't happen, but it was still really interesting how the story went nonetheless.
Yeah, what we do still have is great. So I was gonna say, like, partway through that it cut out, but it was, I got all of what you said, Aqua, Frieza. Would you be able to maybe not? You don't have to say the exact same thing, but like maybe something similar to what you may have just said, just so it's on the recording. I think it just,
Oh no, did it go out again?
It was just slightly when I just heard. I didn't hear you guys for a bit. And I was like, I can hear me, but it's okay.
You're talking about before? Or you're talking
Yeah.
About now?
So that's being recorded now. That's fine. I guess, yeah. Sort of. It is really interesting, like you guys saying. Just about like all these different themes within it. There's so much that we can go into, even the years that have gone past. Like it still holds up very, very well, even if it's kind of feels like it's like maybe sort of 3/4 of a story with the last quarter missing. What is missing? Like it's still okay, because we still have the other 3/4.
I think the big issue is they need to find a way to draw an audience, and that's a very difficult task. How do you draw an audience to a game that's almost complete is a very near impossible task. Like look at Assassin's Creed, right? Assassin's Creed is a very popular series. I played it when it first came out. I played 2 right afterwards, and I was so excited for 3.
Yeah.
But then Assassin's Creed, Unity came out, and then Black Flag, and all this other crap. And when that happens, for some reason, there's no real psychological explanation why, but if you miss a movie or if you miss an entry into the series, you have almost, a 10% chance of ever revisiting the series. So how do you go from there? Like, you have people who mostly started with Soul Reaver 1. They never played Blood Omen 1. And they're pretty happy with that. But now how do you get people to play Legacy of Kain Dark Prophecy when they haven't played Blood Omen 1, Soul Reaver 1, Blood Omen 2, Defiance? Like,
That's
they
true.
have no idea what's coming.
people who are in it, like us, other fans, like hardcore fans, like they, we're gonna immediately jump on it. Like if any company, for example, I don't know how you guys feel about the company, but From Software, their Dark Souls games, Elden Ring, Bloodborne, if they acquired the IP, I'd be extremely happy and excited. I don't know how you guys would feel about that, but if they managed to keep similar conventions to what happened, like incredible voice acting, and if they handled it correctly, I think that would be fantastic. And there's a lot of people who really do love From Software. I don't know how you guys feel about the company or their games, but
I mean, a company's a company. They're gonna do things that they think are smart that aren't, and then they're gonna do things that actually do work out. But then there's limitations. Like Soul Reaver 1, the one of the artists, the lead artist, was in an interview, and I was watching it, and he was talking about how they wanted to do way more with the game, but they had a huge limitation graphically, and they had huge
yeah,
limitations coding wise.
yeah, because coding on the PS1, I mean, I suppose at the time they're still getting their heads around the PS1.
I think he said they only had like a megabyte of memory.
Really?
Yeah, it was really low. Like gigabytes were not a thing, basically. And that's not unbelievable, but at the same time, in today's day, we have such crazy graphics, such crazy details. But that's a very hard sell to get a game company to design such a product, especially now in today's video game market where it's actually going down and people don't really notice it.
Yeah, because Aqua, I don't know about you, because I know we spoke before, and I saw that you're also a member of the Kingdom Hearts community. Obviously, your name is Aqua. Your profile is the character of Aqua. Kind of your take on the video game sort of scene. Do you also see that? Because I've been seeing some stuff pop up recently about how like Square Enix is in trouble and stuff, despite like Rebirth. But then you also have Kingdom Hearts 4 on the horizon. Square Enix potentially could pick up the franchise, but it's very unlikely. And I guess I just wanted to hear your take on kind of, Nosgoth, Dark Prophecy, and kind of following on from what Frieza was saying.
Well, I would say though, along with LOK, I'm still relatively new to Kingdom Hearts. I've only played the first game so far, but I do know the story that does happen later on in the games. But
Okay.
aside from that, yeah. I'm also, yeah. Usually when I try to recommend it to people, I usually just talk about either find the games if you're able to, or emulate them, or watch the cutscenes at least. Especially with YouTube being YouTube, it's very accessible, and people put the cutscenes even in different languages on there all the time, even, especially back then when I was very huge to do so. And aside from that, I know From Software is definitely a company that has done on a lot of interesting different games, but they're still relatively new for me to research. Like now, just as we were talking about this, I just have to look up more stuff they make, and I didn't even know how they made so many different games aside from the Dark Souls games as well, which I find to be very interesting. I may look more into it later. But I would find it very interesting, especially if Crystal Dynamics would consider collaborating with them sometime. Especially
I feel like
with
that would be a match in heaven, like, because they if you play Elden Ring or if you play the Soul series, you encounter these incredible voice actors with these characters, and even like when you look at certain like weapons or characters or bosses, they remind me of kind of like similar feel to like Soul Reaver and Legacy of Kain to me. I don't know if you agree with that, Frieza.
Well, I never.
Aqua.
So
Really,
that's
I'm gonna let you
that's
start, Freezer.
well, that was kind of the big theme with Blood Omen 1. Was that Blood Omen 1, you're a vampire. You should be like amazing. No, you're actually like slightly above humans in terms of power for totem pole. Like, there's all sorts of nasty mutants, there's all sorts of crazy demons that could just mess you up. And that's why when I designed my RPG, I tried to keep that in mind, that it's basically a survival, where it's a dark fantasy. Everything's out to kill you, and just because you're one of the bad guys doesn't mean you're the top guy. You still gotta watch out. And that's why I designed my game to be like, you could one-shot somebody, but just letting you know you could get one-shotted too. Like, it goes both ways. So yeah, them working together to design a video game, I would not put it past them to say, like, that's a good idea. Here's a game where, yes, you have
Oh.
hit, but you know, that monster probably one hit me like 600 times for me to find that out.
Yeah. I think I got disconnected then, just
Oh
briefly.
no.
Sorry. But I got a little bit of that, I think. But it was mainly just to say, Frieza, maybe once again, you'd be excited for that project, right? You'd be, and possibly them that they would have elements of kind of what you've put in your RPG, with that kind of survival element. And
Funny enough, actually, some of the spells I made were actually based on Dark Souls.
very good. Yeah.
Like, one of them was an item that summons like a bear claw, and the bear claw like swipes the enemy. And I got that from one of the Elden Ring items, which is like a celestial thing that, like, an illusion of something pops up and hits someone.
Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's inspiration. Very excited for that new Shadow of the Tree DLC. That looks fire, man. Absolute fire and cracked, and yeah. Hopefully it's really, really good. It should be. I'm sure it's going to be. But yeah, sorry, coming back to Legacy of Kain and vampires and stuff. I guess that for me, kind of going slightly back into Elden Ring, that for me kind of gives me the same feeling of Legacy of Kain in terms of its writing, in terms of its voice acting talent and flavor, at least these days, because, you know, sadly we can only go back to those old video games, or, you know, they never did like a live action movie or anything like that, or you know, like an anime or something like that. So, but obviously there's other ways to enjoy it, like with your RPG, Frieza. So from playing that, like, the stories that you must tell through that must be like incredible.
I usually avoid, when it comes to my storytelling, I avoid major characters. And the reason why is because I do not feel like my writing expertise can perfectly encapsulate the persona of some of those characters.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it depends.
Like,
it depends. Like, I don't want to necessarily knock your writing, but yeah, I mean, you know, some people do that with other established settings, don't they? They don't, if they, for instance, are playing Star Wars, they don't include the big names. It's just other people. So maybe that's a similar thing that you're doing there.
yeah, like, some people are comfortable, like, they go, oh yeah, here comes Darth Vader, and he falls deeply in love with this secret woman. It's like, dude, what? Have you seen the movies like I have? Like, what?
Yeah.
And it's because in their head they feel like that would make sense, and it's like, that's great for you, but I'm not gonna step in another artist's shoes and try to say how their character would behave when I really don't fully grasp the whole, like, inspiration behind it. Because Kane's a really unique character, and I try to look at, like, biblical, Shakespearean stuff, and it's a mix mash of a lot of cool core concepts. I can't really get any one of those concepts all together. I could do them individually,
Yeah.
So I could do like a character who's maybe one facet of Kain's personality,
Yeah.
but doing all of that, ooh, that's gonna be a very tough idea for me to try to sell to somebody.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if I tried your RPG, uh, I think it'd be interesting if those established characters did show up, but they could be. They don't have to necessarily. They could be more cameos than the main focus, but yeah, I
I
don't
was
know.
gonna do like letters basically. Like here's a royal seal on a letter and then that's it.
Like the main characters wouldn't be able to wield the Soul Reaver at any point. They wouldn't just find it in the Seraphon stronghold and be like, oh, it's here because of the timeline or something like that, you know.
Yeah, no, I'm not
Yeah.
doing that. No.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, obviously with your RPG, like it's up to the creators and it's up to the individual to decide that. So, like
Yeah,
with
exactly.
like with those Star Wars RPGs or like Marvel RPGs and things like this. So, Aqua, do you play tabletop RPGs? Because
I would say I've played D&D at least a year ago, but that's one thing. Otherwise, I spend way more time making art and writing fanfics related to LOK, but it's definitely been a slow process, especially since, well, I haven't fully checked out the series, so of course I want to be able to do that before I write any more plot and scenarios, especially with how I'm continuing on the story post-Defiance. Keep in mind as well, from what I've seen anyway, especially since, yeah, I started out the series checking all that last, cutscene compilation and relating to. Basically, I basically think of the beginning when Raziel was about to meet Torel when he was mistaken for Hashakik, and a little scene with Kain beforehand. I don't remember the scene specifically. Basically, think of that, and then it continued all the way to the ending. Basically, that's how I experienced Defiance so far. But on that, I've seen only sporadic cutscenes and such. But have still basically I haven't played Blood Omen 1, but I did watch Dark Lord Dash's video series on the game describing what happens, basically like a storyteller in a way, while also showing cutscenes, gameplay, and of course enough context of the story and dialogue and characters and everything to showcase what's happening basically.
fantastic.
And that's basically how I went from there. And I'm
So
currently playing through Soul River 1, so yeah, it's a slow process, but it's still something that's happening.
So that's kind of what I was talking about earlier about how it's very difficult to get new people into this. So Aqua's a new person in the Legacy of Kain stuff, and that's a very big rarity.
Yeah, it's
That's
great to
very,
hear
very
that
rare.
you're doing art and stuff like that. It sounds like you're an established artist. Um,
Yeah, I
but
stick
yeah,
at drawing as long as I can remember myself,
but it's great that
Yeah.
even if she is like a newcomer to the series, like the community's gonna obviously with open arms accept, and there's all of this stuff out there like to get inspired by, years from now. And I think even I'm in my 30s, you guys in your 20s. There's gonna be like kids potentially coming up. They'll discover this in their 20s or whatever, and they'll be like, "This is sick," or like I honestly believe that because it holds up. It's like it's not as like a popular IP as some of this other stuff, but like it's still like one of these hidden gems, kind of lost to time in a sense. It didn't have like a big remaster, like those old series, like more more popular, like Crash Bandicoot, Spyro Reignited, this type of thing, right? Which would have been cool to kind of like to see these characters again in a new way. I know we're getting a remake for Silent Hill at the moment, Silent Hill 2. We've had the remakes for Final Fantasy 7. That's again bringing back like a classic game so many people love, just with a fresh coat of paint. That I don't know. That would be a dream come true for me to see them pick up the series again and get the hype going. But yeah,
One of the one of the things is that I'm usually against remastering of video games,
Right.
but in Legacy of Kain's case, I think that they need to redo Blood Omen 1. And by redo, I don't mean remaster it. I mean like redo the entire game. Same story,
Same
same
story,
cutscenes,
same.
same everything. But you're just changing the way the game is. Like now it's an RPG, or now it's a tactical D&D kind of game, like Baldur's Gate 3. Whatever it
Okay.
is, they need to do something like that. Maybe even put a morality system and add like
Hmm.
moral choices for Kain to do, just so that way when you get to the ending, you have two endings, but you're only given one of them based on morality. They could do something crazy like that, and I'm totally fine with that. I just want it to
wish,
be.
yeah, we had the budget. I wish we had the budget to throw at this project. Like, we had the money to just be like, yep, fine, hire artists, hire all these people. Oh, we have a very special member of the chat that's just joined. Hello, Harry
Oh?
Venom Raven. This is my friend from school who is also a massive fan of the series. So welcome.
Hello.
So
I just
yeah,
wanted to say hello. Sorry.
that's fine. So yeah, all those ideas. I mean, I just wish someone would greenlight these projects.
Yeah, that's why in the meantime, I've been just kind of focused on fan made stuff. And mind you, anytime, any point, the video game company could say, you know what, we're going to put down the legal hammer. We don't like these fan made stuff. And they could send me an email saying cease and desist, and I would have to stop and like cancel my game.
Yeah, you see that stuff with like, Nintendo, Pokemon, certain things, and yeah, it's an unfortunate part of the industry.
But thankfully, thankfully though, Legacy of Kain's never done what I've done. So if they ever did come at me with that hammer, I would just simply rename the whole thing and get rid of the word Hilden and switch it out for a different name that I could customize.
Yeah, exactly. It's the Kekasi of Lane, and these are lampires. Yeah.
Boy.
But yeah, it is fantastic. I had some more questions for you guys actually. I know we
I'm
got
still
a little,
good. Let's keep going.
off topic
Yeah.
a little bit, but no, really we're on topic. It's just I was gonna say, did you or have you collected any like Legacy of Kain merchandise, like being a fan of the series?
Oh no.
Because funnily enough,
No.
I gave it was an Etsy Soul Reaver sword to my friend Harry that's in the chat for his birthday or Christmas or something, and
Cool.
he still has that to this day. Kind of jealous of it as well because it's sick, but I know they used to do like these action figures where you could get a little Soul Reaver, it's almost like a little keychain, or these things like this, figures of Kain, figures of Raziel, the merch, and I've never really seen anyone wear like a Soul Reaver t-shirt. If I did, I'd be like, that guy's awesome.
I've
That
seen
girl.
I've seen a lot of tattoos.
Yeah. I don't think anyone I know has one though. Like the classic Kain symbol, or the obviously the Raziel is his where you can see on his cloak, like the hoodie that's well, it's not a hoodie, but it's like the scarf around his face.
The cape, yeah.
The cape, yeah. The sort of, they almost look like tears kind of coming down, like jagged tears.
Yeah, that was actually intentional. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's something that I did put in my game with capes actually for the vampires.
Oh sweet. Like with like different designs on them.
I didn't put designs or nothing. I just said that your character could buy one, and it doubles their clan trait buff. So if their clan trait made them resistant to fire, now you're extra resistant to fire and
Yeah.
extra strong, or whatever it is.
Because that's one of the main weaknesses, isn't it? It's like fire, sunlight, water.
Water.
But it depends on how strong you are, right? It's like Kain,
Yeah.
he's walking around in sunlight multiple times in the series, like when he's a young vampire, when he is a more kind of, I don't want to say ancient, but mature vampire, like Soul Reaver 2 and
So
Defiance.
that was all in Blood Omen 1. So Blood Omen 1, what it was
he was still
as
quite
you go
weak.
through the game,
He was like a fledgling.
yeah. As you go through the game, he comes across these fountains of the ancients, and they're just random blood fountains sitting in the middle of nowhere, and they actually talk to you. And you drink it, and it gives you like, if you drink it at one level, it gives you immunity to snow damage. So now snow doesn't hurt you. That's nice. Then there's another one where you drink it, and now rain doesn't bother you. That's nice. So there's all these blood fountains that Kain gets. Like in Blood Omen 1, Kain is an insanely powerful fledgling vampire.
Yeah, I
because he
played
gets
it.
all
I loved
these
it.
buffs.
I did really like it. I liked the secondary weapon. I always use those like shuriken because it always just mess people up. It was like
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, sorry, you were saying. Aqua, have you played Blood Omen?
Well, as I did mention, I've not played Blood Omen 1, and I've yet to get to Blood Omen 2, let alone watch the cutscenes even, which I probably would when I check out the game itself, but yeah.
Blood Omen 1 does work on the computer for people listening. You could probably find it for free to download.
I know it's on GOG, but...
Yeah, like...
I don't have GOG at the moment, so I haven't played it at the moment. But aside from that, yeah... I can only dream of owning merch. Having figurines of these characters was something I would absolutely do literally anything to get, honestly.
Yeah. Like, you can still check out eBay, and NECA was the company. There was always this Raziel figure that I wanted. Like, it was sold at this game store I used to go to growing up, and I should have bought it. I would walk past it sometimes and just be like, I don't have the money. And I think that game store ended up going, under or something. But they did a Soul Reaver 1 Raziel figure, Soul Reaver 2 Raziel figure, which I thought looked even better. But they're from a company called NECA, if you wanted to check it out, if you ever have the money and you're interested. But I think they're pretty rare now, but anyway. Not ridiculously rare, just a little bit.
I see one on eBay for $189.
Oh, there you go. So yeah, that's...
I'm seeing...
There you go.
I'm even looking at eBay, sorry.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I'll keep interrupting.
That's a Soul Reaver 1, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm just looking out of curiosity. Sorry.
Yeah, so you would type in Soul Reaver NECA and then figure, and then you find ones for... I'm sure they did a Kain and Raziel, the main players. Don't think they did a Mobius. And I don't think they did, like... They may have done one of Raziel's brothers, potentially. I don't know if it was, like,
$300. Oof.
Is that for Kain? Or
no, that's just the Raziel one.
Sorry,
I decided to just check out an eBay out of curiosity, Lexio Kain toys, and I saw basically Kain and Raziel Deluxe toys in boxes for about $999.99. That's insane.
Okay, that hurts. Well, when we become millionaires, maybe then we can play in the market a little bit better.
For now, something about this pricing is just evil.
Yeah. For now, well, the keychain that I gave my friend, that was the only Soul Reaver sword I've had. But I have a copy of Soul Reaver 2 on the PS2, which I'm happy to own. I don't have Soul Reaver 1 or Defiance. I used to own them. Don't know why. I don't know if you guys find this, but like, why did I trade in these certain games? Like, just to buy I didn't have the money, so to get that new game. It's like, I shouldn't have gotten rid of Defiance. I love that game, and I need to pick it up again.
Defiance I find in just about every retro video game store, so I mean, it's not uncommon to find it.
Yeah, it's true. They made billions of copies of these things, so...
It's the older stuff that you usually can't find. Like if
Blood
you're trying to
Omen,
find
PS1.
yeah,
Yeah.
like
Sorry.
Blood Omen 2 was hard to find, for me at least,
Mm.
in a retro game store. But I always found Defiance. Didn't matter what day it was. I would always go there. Boom, there's
Hey,
Defiance.
Yep.
I couldn't find Wrath Unleashed. I couldn't find Max Payne because everyone
Mhm.
buys those things. But then all of a sudden it's just Defiance, Defiance, Defiance. And it's like, okay, too many people playing Defiance.
Clearly,
I
they.
know,
Yeah, sorry, Aqua.
I know I was able to randomly find Blood Omen 2 and Defiance in a game store, which literally, I'm not sure if you guys have it. At least I know apparently the Brits had one called Game Station. It,
Yeah.
technically speaking, still kind of exists in over here where I live. Basically, I'm Icelandic. Yeah, it wasn't a shopping mall, at least for a long while, but it closed down last year, and now it's only an online-only store, which I'm still sad about because I miss visiting the store and finding games like even another Crystal Dynamics game, Whiplash, which I heard is a really good game.
I love
Yeah,
that
yeah.
game.
Yeah, found a PS2 copy, still able to play it. But I saw these games were advertised in the website anyway, but I wasn't able to find them, and yes, I was very sad about it.
Whiplash is
Especially when I
definitely made
spent
for kids.
Is that
It's
the
really
one with
funny.
the I don't know, was it experimented on Bunny and like he's attached to
Yeah.
another animal or something and they keep
He's attached
smacking
to a
together?
weasel.
Weasel, yeah.
Banks and
remember it.
Raymond, they're escaping a animal testing facility, and they have to try and escape and destroy the company while they're at it.
It's a
That
really
does
funny
sound funny,
game.
yeah.
Because what it is you're playing the weasel and the rabbit's chained to you. So it's a fighting game and it's a platform. So in order to fight, you literally just whack people with the rabbit on the chain. And he's just like talking the whole time. He's like, ow, ow, ow. And you're just slapping the crap out of him. It was funny as hell.
That does sound great.
Like you need a fire bunny in order to exit this one area, so you literally stick him in a furnace. He's like, no, no. Oh jeez.
So did you guys both beat the game?
I beat all the Legacy of Kains, and then I beat Whiplash, yeah.
Yet to play Whiplash, like I said, but I have again seen the cutscenes because somebody was really cool putting it together as if it was a cinematic movie or something. Don't remember the name. I should look it up. But not sure if I would really say it's a kids game, especially since, well, when you have the animal cruelty played to a very slapstick level as well, and not to mention some really adult references like, I don't know, like apparently the one of the chimpanzees apparently has a thing with a nurse trying to help them out. I don't know, it's weird.
All right.
Specific thing like, and before the final boss begins, last time I checked, the main CEO and the main antagonist was being all yeah, what do you have on there? Porn? And one of the guys was just, sir, you do know you're talking to animals, right?
He's like talking to the monkey. That's
Yeah.
funny.
It was a silly game because like all you see of the guy is just his eye. God, it's so funny.
So yeah, not for kids. Mature rating, like the Soul Reavers. I mean, occasionally they do like this explicit language. I don't know if that's a thing in Whiplash, but you know,
It was more
Mobius, you
for
vile
teens.
bastard. There's that
I
line.
would say that.
You know, it's like, ooh, Raziel's cussing. You know, and I think Kain, doesn't Kain say something in Blood Omen 1? He's mean. He's like, you know, get out of
He
my way.
doesn't-
But he doesn't actually cuss anyone out, I don't think.
No,
says mean
he's
stuff.
very.
But he doesn't say, like, I think the only thing they dropped was bastard, wasn't it? In Soul Reaver 2.
Yeah, I
That was it.
remember. I do remember. I definitely know Raziel said bastard or something like that when he said
Yes,
it
you
because,
bastard.
well, considering Kain and Raziel came back in a Tomb Raider game as DLC, and that was basically them being there, but just their audio compiled. Not even bring the voice actors back, just taking different pieces of audio from the series and putting them
Trying
together
to make it
and
work in
somehow
the
they're
game.
interacting. Yeah, that's how I heard about it.
Yeah, that's kind of the issue too.
How
is
do
that,
they
like,
get
the
there?
voice
Like-
actors are getting old.
Do they just like appear in a portal? It's like, where are we? I don't know. there's Lara Croft. Let's do some missions. Like, it's just, yeah, kind of shoehorned in there. But it's obviously there for, like, oh, you remember us, right? You know, by now. It's obviously, yeah, pulling on our heartstrings as fans.
Yeah. But yeah, I just found it to be very silly and interesting how they're there, but all HUD is just audio. And one thing that really stood to me was just Parhar runs away, maybe because he doesn't want to be killed and such, but I'm not sure if he really screamed. I don't know. That part just felt extremely weird to me. Yeah, in that DLC, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't play that game, the top-down Lara Croft, but it sounds like you guys did. I just saw the trailer.
I don't play Lara Croft.
It's my boys.
Again, I never played it, just looked at it on YouTube.
Yeah.
That's my story, looking at something on YouTube.
Which is fine, which is like, I'm kind of having that a little bit at the moment with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I want to experience it. I love the old PS1 game and I've beaten it, but like, you know, I don't have a PS5 right now, so I also think like you. I think I'll just watch the cutscenes, but then I also see, okay, 20 hours of cutscenes, maybe I'll do some other stuff and get round to it. So yeah, exclusivity and things like that.
Well, the big issue too you got to watch out for is that there's a lot of story building that happens in game versus like the cutscenes.
Oh, in the Rebirth?
Well, Legacy of Kain Blood Omen 1. There's a moment where Kain is just traveling through a city, and there's just this random gypsy dude who's homeless as hell, and he's not violent towards you. In fact, he sees you and he tells you, he's like, oh, hey vampire, word of advice, you may want to change the way you look. And Kane's like, why are you so chill with me? And he's just like, nah, it's okay. Just, you know, try to dress up different. I'm used to your guys. It's like, what?
I don't
Who's
remember
this
that bit in
random
Blood Omen.
Yeah.
I beat that game,
It's-
but maybe I didn't walk past that guy.
It's in the very first city you go
The
to,
first
where like the
city?
city's just full of like dead people and stuff. And it's really funny because like you're fighting the guards while, you know, there's like dead bodies everywhere. And then there's just this guy just chilling here.
Damn. Maybe I did. I can't remember. But when I think back to Blood Omen, I do think about, you know, yeah, definitely some of the cutscenes. You know, like the revelation about William the Just, the Vorador cutscenes, when you first get the Soul Reaver as well, and you're like playing around with it. And obviously the start of the game as well, coming out of that crypt and his dialogue. But yeah, I felt like I had another question for you guys, but I suppose, is there is there anything that you would sort of do you think this is the end, as in like Dark Prophecy is probably not going to come to pass, that will always be like cutting room floor stuff?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know you were also talking about remasters and everything, and the story being unfinished as well. Yeah.
And Nosgoth, like what do you think of that MMO? Because
Never played it, but it's interesting. But
It wasn't an MMO.
is it not an MMO? Was it like a...
No. It was like a team versus team game.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
I thought it was
Basically.
Really? Because I heard it wasn't well received. A lot of the fans kind of... A lot of us kind of just kind of looked at it and was just like, where's Kain? Where's the Soul Reaver? Where is Nosgoth?
There was no story to it. There was nothing. It was just simply a quick match, and that was it. You just join into a game, whether you were human or vampire, and you would have your objective. And usually as vampire, you were just to kill the humans.
So did
But
you...
it was basically Left 4 Dead versus mode, basically.
Was it Left 4 Dead? Okay. Because yeah, I think I remember seeing some of the gameplay for it, and I was like, is this an MMO? But from what you're saying, yeah, it's a 5v5 Left 4 Dead thing.
If you look at the ages of vampires and humans, the class names that I got, like, oh, if you're a vampire, you could be a Reaver class or Tyrant class. That's actually ripped from Nosgoth, the video game. So I took those and I was like, hey, let me put this in here.
Oh, okay, yeah. Throw it in your
Awesome.
pen and paper, yeah.
Of course, I did change the way they operate completely, but I just like the name. I was like, yeah, these names work.
Yeah, if I may talk about how I feel about Nosgoth, I don't know, it's a kind of a mix of emotions for me. I mean, people still like to play it even though the servers are down, but of course, I'm pretty sure they're still able to mod in a way so it can be played. And knowing the likes of Kain community, they're definitely talented when it comes to modding and such, so I know they have their ways of going around stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is that the game, it had like snippets of lore in it that were actually really cool. So when you would load into a map, the map itself would have a bit of lore on it. Like, here's the city of so and so. This is the city that is the main
Yes.
exporter of blood. It's like, okay, that 2 lines of dialogue tells me a lot. And it was really cool because one of the areas they brought back was the Razielum. And it's like, what? You could play as the Razielum? I thought they were genocided by this time. And it turns out these are Razielums who have no idea what happened. And it's like this whole backstory that you're reading the maps and you're reading like the location lore and stuff. And it's really cool. Apparently, the Razielums, when they were mutating their young offspring, they put them in a secluded area. And sure enough, when all the Razielums were killed, the young ones would mutate and they would rise, and then they'd see no one is around. Sure enough, when all the and apparently Duma met them and was like, "Oh, let me tell you a bit about what happened." Of course, he doesn't tell them the truth, and they feel like that their clan disgraced them, so they have to, revive their order and revive their honor. So they decide to fight in the fight for against humanity. And it's like really cool background lore that no one ever touches on ever again. I thought it was really cool.
And is this in this Nosgoth 5v5
Yes.
game? Okay, that's actually credit for where credit's due. I didn't know that. Maybe this is sounding more positive. I'm feeling more positively inclined to that side of it. The more you've said it.
As I said, it was just like 2 lines of dialogue at a time with like the loading screens. But when you start to piece these together and you start to see what's kind of going on, it's really cool, really really cool. Like I did a lore video on Duma, and I was talking about how Duma is a very interesting guy because when we see him, it seems like he just killed Raziel just because he's a betraying, backstabbing brother. But then when you play the video game Nosgoth, you realize, wait a minute, where are the other brothers? Terrell, we know, is kidnapped. We know Terrell's gone.
Mm-hmm.
But who else is defending the Empire? Zephon is up to his own schemes, hiding something. You got Melchiah, who's busy with his own research. He doesn't give a crap what's going on. Rahab is busy with his own adventures too, doing whatever he wants with his clan. So who's defending the Empire against humanity? Duma. And now it's like, oh, that's why in Soul Reaver 1, there's Duma him everywhere. It's because they were deployed everywhere. It's not because their clan is scattered. It's because Duma was trying to protect everything. It makes sense. And it's really cool when you start to see it from that perspective. Of course, people interpret the game however they wish. They could say, no, for 700, you're completely wrong. I interpret it this way. And I'm totally okay with that. Go ahead. Interpret it however you want.
Yeah.
But I think that's a cool perspective.
No, that is cool.
Yeah. But it definitely does sound interesting, especially from that perspective. Yeah, though, I would say though, the reason I said it was a mix of emotions was also because, technically speaking, it was going to be related to the cancel project Death's Son, and considering, maybe it's also because I watched the video on Ray Nodrin's channel on the history of the game, and knowing Death's Son wasn't really made by people that cared about the series much and thought it was garbage or something like that, which, yeah, I'm not actually a big fan of that.
Yeah, it's a
Especially
Yeah,
shame. It's a
that sort of
shame.
thing definitely bothers me, especially because of it. And technically speaking, Nosgoth was made by the same people as well, just doing whatever. Though maybe there were people that did care, probably. I don't want to speak for the entire team of that game, but just knowing the kind of game that Sun was apparently supposed to be, I don't know, it just makes me feel like, especially when how games at the time were trying really hard to be mature or something like that, especially like DMC or something, when it came across as just immature more than anything. And I don't know, especially with things like, I don't know, one of the huntresses or something had one of their breasts hanging out. Like, what was even the deal with that? Were they just doing it just to appeal to specific audiences? I don't know. When, I
Yeah,
don't know, the series itself didn't really need any of that stuff. They just, you know, they just went ahead and forward going with a straightforward story that was interesting, didn't have to do anything like that to, I don't know, be appealing, anything sort of cheap thing like that. It was just genuine
maybe it
with
was,
everything it
you know,
did.
like with what you're saying about like including stuff like that. You know, maybe they're looking at like God of War because you know, like God of War had some stuff like that in it. I
That
know
makes
this
sense.
this is like a cancel game, wasn't it? It was like PS3, 360 era.
Yeah.
Um, and I think from what I heard about Dead Sun, it was supposed to be similar to like Legend of Zelda. Um, you know, dungeon crawls, puzzles, bosses. You know, similar to that old style of Legacy of Kain before the kind of Defiance more hack and slashy stuff. Obviously, that did have puzzles, but
Mm.
like, I wasn't sure. I don't know if you know this, but is Dead Sun and Lost Dark Prophecy, are they two different projects? They're two separate things.
They're absolutely two different projects. One was made by Crystal Dynamics sometime in between or even after Defiance was being worked on. Keep in mind, Defiance came out in 2003 and, well, apparently didn't sell well, which makes me sad and probably did add to the game being hard to find, which makes me glad I have a PS2 copy. But yeah, but yeah, Dark Prophecy the Dark Prophecy was worked on by Crystal Dynamics, especially around 2006 when it was no longer being worked on. We do have concept art and everything, and even scenarios, I think, that were rendered and surroundings that and areas that Kain would go to. And even the Legacy of Kain fandom wiki goes into great detail about it too, at least as much as it can, anyway. Well, Dead Sun was made by a completely different company and a completely different team that basically didn't care much for the series, which, yeah. And they're two very different projects altogether, and Nosgoth was somewhere in between of that.
Mm.
Which, yeah.
Just can't catch a break,
At least,
can it? This series.
nope. It's very sad.
I mean, as I said, if this is the end of the Legacy of Kain stuff, I'm all right with it.
you can still have
There's like,
that, you know, quote at the end of the game. You know, hope, that bittersweet taste. Hope, like that's still a good place to end on. I still think him looking out on in the vampire, not the cathedral, the vampire stronghold place,
the Vampire Citadel, yes.
vampire citadel, and then he says that line in front of the pillars which have collapsed. The world is so screwed because now that Hilden has possessed Janos Audrin and things are bad. Which that's another thing. I kind of wanted to find out what happened next. Everyone did. You guys did.
Yeah.
What was gonna
It is a
happen?
very
What
interesting
did you
ending.
think? What
Yeah, it was a.
what would you
Sorry.
if say you were the director for the game or the writer, how would you, if you were saying working backwards, like they do with like the Nier games, of like how is the Dark Prophecy gonna end? How does it begin? What happens with that Hilden possessed Janos Audrin guy? I'm just curious to hear what you guys sort of come up with.
Hmm.
With Janos Adrian, I didn't really care too much what happened to him. I figured that it was all resolved by Blood Omen 2.
Mm.
But when it comes to the Dark Prophecy ideas that they were throwing around, which is you explore Hilden's society and you actually enter the demon realm,
Where they're all
that becomes
living.
very...
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
What's the description of Kain going to the Hilda realm and absolutely beating the crap out of them? I find that to be very interesting. Hanging on himself.
Because the thing is that the Hilden, they're very much mortal just like anyone else. And we see it in Blood Omen 2 that here's a Kain who doesn't have his Soul Reaver and is using like a few of his powers. He's not using all of his powers here. And he's still like killing them, massacring them.
Because the Hilden Lord stole the Soul Reaver sword, didn't he? So he's lost
Yeah,
his
exactly.
iconic Master Sword
apparently
weapon.
he did, yeah.
And there were some interesting ideas that they were throwing around. One of the things they wanted to do is they wanted to show Hilden society has like a clan system. So their system would be basically we have like a single city that protects them from the outside effects of the demon realm, but it's slowly failing. And those who are in the center of the city are like the super rich, upper class, very powerful Hilden, the highest of their clan. And they have basically zero corruption or almost no corruption on them. Whereas the further out of the city you go, you start having those Hilden who have like their hands are replaced with bone blade. Those people are riddled with insult. And you would see how those clans interact and mingle, and there was supposed to be even like royalty. That would be interesting to explore and all that, especially since they have their own religion apparently. Like they view blood magic as like heretical, as a heresy. And that would be very interesting to see.
Because what we get from the Hilden, we really only get from Defiance and Blood Omen 2. Like,
The
correct me if
big
I'm wrong.
inference, the big inference we can make is, I did a bit of a video on them, and a lot of people liked my interpretation.
Really?
So, when it comes to the Vampire Society, the ancient vampires, all their stuff is in the skies. There's a lot of ways to get inside them from the sky alone. And a lot of their depictions in art shows them wearing no armor. So we see that ancient vampires were very much naturalists. They believe in their own natural gifts. If you can lift up a cart with just one hand, why would you invent like a horse carriage? There's no point. Whereas the Hilden, a lot of their stuff we find is underground. And their art always depicts them wearing some sort of weapon or some sort of armor. And that's very different. So here we have one species that's really blessed with natural gifts of flight, able to use blood magic,
Unnaturally
able
long
to...
life, basically,
Yeah.
immortality, let's just say it.
And then you got the Hilden who live somewhat underground. They have these crazy technologies, they're really smart, but they're wearing full armor, they're wearing weapons. We don't see that in the ancient vampire culture that often. Just see the Soul Reaver and that's it. So it's like, okay, here's this battle between these two factions. One who praises life because life's been good to them. Look at them, they are blessed. And then another one who doesn't think the same. So I think that'd be a very interesting clash between the two.
Yeah. What do you think, Aqua, in terms of, I guess, the Hilden as a thing? Because we've spoken a lot about vampires. We haven't actually spoken too much about humans, but yeah, in terms of Hilden.
Yeah, the Hilden. Yeah, they're definitely an interesting bunch, I would say. And yeah, it's definitely interesting, a lot of things you talked about, Freezer, because maybe it's because I also looked into a lot of deep dives into the series. And I always thought of them as very, at least from what I've seen, which I find to be interesting because they more or less seem to be a very rational, scientific kind of race, more atheist and more than religious folk. I don't know. Well, considering the ancient vampires worship the elder god, they were definitely believing a god, you would say. And yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm going with, is that
Nice.
if your life sucks and here's another person who's just amazingly gifted, Of course, the person who's amazingly gifted is going to say, well, I'm just blessed. You, on the other hand, you're going to say, all right, that's dumb. I'm going to start being innovative so that way I can match their blessing. And then that's what we see. Like, when we play Blood Omen 2, all the technology is a mixture of magic and tech. And it's like, wow, this is definitely not vampire stuff. This is definitely not human stuff either. So it shows how the Hilden work. And to see them explored, it would be cool to see them in the demon realm where they're stuck in this place that's full of magic and it's driving them insane. But yet they're purposely binding it with their technology.
Also, I wanted to hear you guys take on, you know, how there's this animosity between the Hilden race and the vampire race. Would you find it interesting, or do you think this does not work as an idea of having a character in the Hilden, like, realm, in this demon realm, like, who was maybe a more sympathetic character, or at least, you know, maybe one of the good guys of the Hilden, which may at first hate you, but then become an ally type character toward you? I don't know how you feel about that. If that doesn't work, like, the Hilden hate the vampires, obviously we know from the murals as we go into you know, that citadel, you know, underneath. So just curious to hear what you guys thought about that, as kind of that animosity between the two, and if a character like that would even work. Oh, have I lost you guys? Oh, I think I've lost you guys. Oh, no, I'm
Way up
disconnected.
in the series, but have still seen cutscenes and such in between, if you know what I mean.
Oh, sorry,
So basically, I'm
I,
just working off what I know
I
anyway.
disconnected for a second there. I'm sorry, guys.
Oh no.
Did you hear my question about the good guy Hilden?
Don't think I have.
Are you talking about the lady who gives you her blood?
Was she Hilden? Because basically my question was like, what would you
Yeah, the seer.
would you be interested in a character who didn't just have animosity towards the vampires? Because there's the animosity between Hildens and vampires. So a character who's more
Well,
kind of sympathetic towards the vampires from the Hilden race. Do you think that character would work, or do you think that doesn't make sense
I
because
would
of what's in the
think
Citadel?
Probably not.
Yeah, they're gonna
would
hate
find
them,
that-
right?
Well, not only that, like, I could understand a Hilden character who just doesn't care at all. But I can't understand a Hilden character who sympathizes.
Or
Because,
one,
like, here's
yeah.
here's a race that's all about technology and stuff like that. So it would make sense if we saw like a Hilden character who's this amazing scientist, amazing sorcerer. And then Kain comes around, he just looks at you and goes, "Oh, great, a vampire? Cool. All right." And he just goes back to his work, just studying whatever he's doing. Like, he just totally dismisses you, he doesn't care. But
Not
for him
like,
to just be
how can I
like,
help you, or like, let's be friends. That's
exactly.
not gonna happen. Like, that's maybe after
Yeah.
a struggle, or like, I don't want to work with you, but fine. Like, for now, maybe, because that's the whole thing. Is like, you know, even Raziel and Kain, they were at each other's throats, but by the
Yeah.
end of it, they had that, you know, amazing moment of, I've always been your right hand, your sword, which I always thought was really cool, because it was like, finally, you know, in a way, Raziel had forgiven Kain for betraying him, basically.
Well, not just him, but genociding the plant. That was a big one.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, Raziel isn't like goody two-shoes, is he? So he's...
Yeah, it was probably really a tough thing to do for him as well, especially, yeah, Kain put her through a lot of shit, didn't he?
Yeah, and
And yeah,
to actually, yeah, murder your brothers, yeah, that's not going to be easy.
yeah. Even
So,
if
yeah,
you had your times of hating each other as well, you were still siblings at the end of the day too. But yeah,
because these
Right.
are anti-heroes, aren't they? They're not...
Mhm.
You can't necessarily say that they are 100% good guys through and through for certain characters you may say that, but then what makes them so interesting is the fact that they are anti-heroes. They're like, when I think of the term anti-hero in my head, I tend to think of characters like this. I don't know about you guys.
So when it comes to like a good classic example of Kain being an anti-hero, I always point to Blood Omen 2. Because you see Uma for the first time, and she's this lady vampire who's been taking care of you. And she's like, oh, Kain, I captured this criminal. He thought I was a helpless woman. Kain just interrupts her and says, shut up, point me to his throat. I don't care about the morals of this. I'm going to drink his blood dry. Just point me to his throat. I'm done.
Yeah.
And that's such a perfect encapsulation of an anti-hero. He doesn't care about the morality. He just does what's right for him. In this case, he's hungry. So what's right about that? Feeding yourself. He doesn't care about the morals of it.
Which is like, sometimes you're less anti-hero, you're now leaning towards like, okay, you're pretty much a villain at a certain point, but you have some heroic qualities, but I don't know how you guys think about that. It's, because
it's a very real thing. Like, you can have a character who helps an old lady crosses the street, and then at the same time he wants to sterilize all babies of a specific race. That's fine. Some people have their moral code, whether they like it to admit it or not.
Yeah.
So...
And that's also what I find to be so interesting, especially with the characters. Yeah, they're absolutely not fully bad, but not fully good either. Definitely a case of a very big gray area in between. But
like Raziel. Raziel himself is guilty of probably the same shit he's accusing Kain of.
Yeah,
because...
murder, fratricide, which is killing your brothers, isn't it?
And also probably slavery. They talked about how they have blood farms. It's like, so you enslaved people. Okay.
Yeah.
Soul Reaver 2,
and then...
with his Sarafan duties, which he's forgotten about after becoming a vampire and then a wraith. You know, he was not a nice guy. He obviously went around... He was a vampire slayer, but he was a very... I guess you could go far as to say malicious vampire slayer that wanted to like drag out the torture and drag out the pain, which is
just
because
not good at all.
Yeah, just them holding down Janos before they were ripped out his heart. That's definitely not a good thing.
But you can imagine, like, this isn't the first vampire that he's done that to, you know.
Well, the thing is, you have to think too, is that staff literally immobilizes a vampire. But when Raziel's thrown out of the room, all we hear is just Janos screaming, "Ugh! Ugh! Ugh!" It's like, damn, dude. He's immobilized. What are y'all doing to him? And then you go in there and they're finally cutting his chest open. It's like, what were you guys doing this whole time? Were you just stabbing his toes individually? Like, oh my god.
Probably just beating him down before holding him down. That's one thing I can guess, if Janos somehow wasn't defending himself in a way.
Just waterboarding him, like, slowly, drop by drop? Jesus Christ.
I just mean, having every skill they have of just grabbing a hold of him, just beating him to a pulp, basically, as much as they could, in a way. That's what I meant.
And, like, part of that I would say is the game's fault, because, I mean, pacing. Because, mind you, I was kind of dumb when I was playing Soul Reaver 2, and I was like, how do you solve this damn puzzle? And meanwhile, Janos is just screaming the whole time. I'm just like, shut up, Janos! Shut up! But then, you know, once you solve the puzzle, they're acting like as if it happened in mere seconds. That could have been just the game development issue for some reason. Or it could have literally just been, they're sadists. They're torturing it for just the fun of it.
Yeah, definitely an evil thing to do, I would say.
Yeah. And I can't really think of anyone else in the series who is altruistic, I am a good guy, no questions asked. Like, I don't know, the ghostly character that haunts the pillars, Ariel balance sign of balance.
Yeah, Ariel.
Balance guardian.
She's interesting because she's only caring about balance.
Is she an
And
altruistic
that
person? Yeah, I don't
no,
think so. Probably not. She is
Yeah,
kind
she
of
has had her times of being kind of cruel in
manipulating.
a way.
She's manipulating Kain
Hmm.
and
well, if
Raziel.
her whole pillar is about balance, then you have to think, what is she balancing? Like, she's not balancing just life or death. She's balancing probably a lot of other things.
Mm.
I think about it personally, considering the pillar of balance is technically in the center, which yeah, that definitely balances everything. I just think of it being the central thing, balancing not only the pillars but also the life force of Nosgoth as a whole. Just how just keeping the world together, and if the world wasn't already going to pieces because of the pillars being corrupted, and yeah, the rest of every single one of the pillars was definitely destroyed. That's one thing. But yeah,
The
Yeah,
big
the
thing though
linchpin
is
of the
that
world. Yeah.
the big thing is that in Blood Omen 1, midway through the game, Ariel tells you you need to stop the Nemesis
yeah.
because the Nemesis is destroying Nosgoth. Okay, why are you telling me now? Did anyone think about that? Why are you telling me halfway through the game?
Because we
Oh,
don't
it's
know
because
it's
he's gonna
William
destroy.
at that point.
He's gonna destroy. Um, basically, the Nemesis has already destroyed half of Nosgoth. So in her mind, if you stop him now, then that's balance. Whereas if you stopped him too early, it would have been too soon, not enough destruction caused.
Mm.
That's the way I was interpreting that. Because to me, it was very weird why she now says it. It's like, hey, by the way, even if you succeed, there's a guy who's literally destroying the world as we speak. Like, why would you bring that up when he's halfway doing it?
Mm.
Yeah. Maybe it's because I didn't think about it much. I just thought, yeah, Kain is taking a side quest on his journey to slay the Pillar Guardians, which he was already doing by that point.
Mm.
But then it makes you wonder. Yeah, it's definitely a priority considering them being alive is literally one of the reasons Nosgoth is dying. But yeah, definitely interesting how she just decides to bring it now that the Nemesis is coming by, and of course he has to team up with Willendorf to defeat the Nemesis, since it's I'm guessing, at least I'm going off memory, it was the only one not ruled by the Nemesis yet, at least.
He had the only army left.
Right, but
The Army
Because
of Hope.
especially when it would end up leading to beating Elsevier and such, and of course that favor ended up with Kain being able to earn, well, working with Otmar, and of course having his army to fight the Nemesis. But of course that would lead to the plot point of Mobius taking advantage of everything and teleporting Kain back in time when the Nemesis was still William the Just. And of course the first thing he would do is, well, kill the Nemesis before he becomes the Nemesis. And the consequence of that was, well, every vampire being erased from Nosgoth, just basically massacred, and he had to witness Bordor being murdered right in front of him. And of course, the death of Mobius.
yeah, coming back to Mobius, like, do you think that Ariel was aware of what he was trying to do? I don't think anyone really knew.
I'm not even sure about that. At least, again, I never thought about it.
But yeah, like,
Or
he played a really good game, basically.
yeah, it was extremely sneaky.
He was a very sneaky character. I do like obviously, I think for a lot of people, I'm gonna ask you guys who your favorite character is. It's usually a tie. I think for all us fans, it's like it's the two. It's our guys. It's Kain and Raziel. But Mobius, as time's gone on, I love that voice actor as well. But yeah, him as a character, very sneaky, very just love him. Love him. It's like love to hate him, hate to love him. That kind of thing.
Well,
I don't know
definitely
how
has
you
one of my
guys think.
favorite
Maybe you guys
characters.
hate Mobius. I don't know.
I think it's just like every other character in the series. I think it's very layered and detailed and interesting. Like, what is your vendetta? Why are you literally the Hitler of the Legacy of Kain universe? especially when people, not sure if it's a theory, maybe it's canon, but a lot of people do speculate or at least talk about the fact that he was taken away. Maybe he was an orphan, maybe he wasn't, but he definitely didn't like the fact that he was taken in by these vampires and would eventually become a vampire himself, which he probably wasn't big on. And yeah, Mortanius and
he
Mobius
raised
definitely
by
do know
vampires?
each other in a way. Technically speaking, yeah, along with Mortanius, I mean.
Oh, Mortanius.
I don't know, maybe
sorry,
I'm
I thought you
remembering
meant,
stuff
I thought you meant
wrong.
Mobius.
I was talking about both,
Okay.
but yeah.
Because, yeah, maybe, like, you're right, like, maybe he was just scared to become a vampire and stuff, and that's why he was like, I hate these things so damn much, but, like, Mortanius,
Yeah, not
you might be right, I don't know, was he raised by
well.
vampires? Because he's a necromancer, I don't know.
Well, Mobius was the guardian of time, while Mortanius was the guardian of death.
Right.
Yeah. I'm just throwing around. I'm not sure if it's canon. It's just something I know people have talked about at least. Or maybe it's just a really evil dude who really doesn't like vampires, which yeah, they add on to it, but yeah, considering he was literally based on Hitler, it just makes you think, yeah, rallying up people to massacre an entire race. Yeah, that's definitely yeah.
Was Mobius based on Hitler? I didn't know that.
Apparently he was from what I read.
What?
Or at least people I think have talked about it.
I don't know about that one.
I don't know about that. But I guess I can see where you're coming from with his worldview of eradicate these filthy vampires, because he hates those vampires. But yeah, I don't know. To me, he was less Hitler, more just the Machiavellian, oh, I just want to help you, Kain. I want to help you, Raziel. You know, that kind of thing to the face. And then when he leaves or he's not around, he's just like, yes, you know. Kind of like Jafar from Aladdin, that kind of thing.
Basically,
So I wanna help you,
doing more
Aladdin.
damage
No, I
with an
hate
open
you.
palm than a closed fist.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's just like, oh, I'll do my evil machinations in the background. You're just helping me here. Also, his using of the time streams. I don't know. I really like this character because he's kind of one step ahead. It feels like in the game, in some ways, because you can kind of imagine this a little bit like a game. You know, like in Game of Thrones, the characters kind of imagine it as all like this political game they're playing, and it's same with Legacy of Kain. It's almost like this chess. I guess, to forgive the term, like this 4D chess of like, you know, this piece is here, and they even use the terminology of like this, the pawn has reached the end of the board. But he's very, you know, smart man, and you know, he plays the game well, you know.
My one favorite character is Rahab.
Rahab.
He's very interesting. Yeah.
Really?
Because like we talked to him just once, and his dialogue sold me on his character. He's so interesting the way he speaks. So when you meet him, he's obviously a shark, and you have to like kill him.
He's the aquatic vampire.
Yeah, shark merman thing.
Yes.
Who
And
speaks
every
like
single thing he says can like be interpreted multiple ways. So he even tells you that Kain told him that Raziel was coming and that Raziel would come and win and kill him. But yet he stayed. And also what's even more crazy is that, wait, Kain saw you recently? Kain abandoned this empire for like 1,000 years. But he came to talk to you specifically. And you're okay with it? Like,
so there's a lot of
he's such a weird character. Yeah, he's really interesting. You can read his dialogue over and over again, and you can come to different interpretations every time. And I love that about him. He's so weird.
Cool. So why do you think Kain went to the drowned abbey to see Rahab? What do you think they were talking about?
I think Rahab embraces fate. And that's something that Raziel sort of points out, is that Rahab and Kain are so close together when it comes to their fatalism. They just accept fate. That's my interpretation. Because
Okay.
here it is, some guy comes to you, and you know he's been gone for centuries, and he just comes up and tells you, by the way, Roy, that friend of yours, he's gonna come in the room right now with a bloody dagger in his hand. He's gonna kill you. You're gonna lose, no matter how much you fight.
And then you leave,
And then
and
you
I'm
sit
basically
there.
Rahab.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you sit there and you see it from your window that, yeah, he's coming with a bloody knife. And you go, you know what? I accept fate because I trust him. He told me that I would die and I at least would serve some sort of purpose. It's like, okay, that's interesting. What else did you talk about?
Oh, okay. So maybe
And
he's
that's,
also thinking, I'm just gonna have this one last fight. He's accepting of it.
but not only that, it kind of raises the question. Kain didn't just come by just to tell you you're gonna die. What else did you guys talk about?
Yeah. What else did he tell you?
But Raziel, of course, is so consumed in his hatred, he doesn't care. He just simply says, all right, Rob, well, you're gonna die. Like, I'm gonna turn you into a pair of fish sticks. You're just gonna die. But I would love to see that explored where maybe in Dark Prophecy, Kain revisits Rahab and he tells him, like, yeah, Raziel's gonna come and kill you. And Rahab's like, what? Are you here to help me? And he's like, no, because Raziel needs to unlock certain things. Like, he explains the whole thing to him. So
you'd
Rahab
like to see
willingly
like a
dies.
cutscene or something with this content inside it.
Something that would like
Yeah.
shed some light, because everything Rahab says is so interesting, so fascinating. Like, he talks about weaknesses, about overcoming them, which
Cain
is
saved
interesting.
us.
Yeah,
How did he save
he's
us?
very
What do you mean?
fascinating.
From ourselves, which you can kind of interpret in a lot of ways. Like
Exactly.
their nature.
Like,
Do they mean the human Sarafan version of themselves? Because Cain was aware that they were Sarafan. They were raised. He raised them.
that's the big one. Does he mean themselves as in the Seraphan, or does he mean that Cain told him he's going to rewrite history and still revive them so they don't devolve? What does he mean? No idea.
Mm.
And it's
they
very
could have
fascinating.
definitely. Yeah. Now that you say it, that's something I haven't really thought too much about. I don't know about you, Aqua, but like that would be really cool. They included that as a plot point in Dark Prophecy.
I know it's definitely something that would be interesting if it did happen, and of course, would definitely give Rahab some the much needed spotlight, I would say. Especially since, yeah, we do get a lot of implications for what happened, and we do see them directly, but most of the time we do mostly just imagine what happened in between events, which I definitely do like. That's one of the reasons I love the series so much. The fact that it's such a big, interesting world with so many layers to it, as much as the characters do. It's a world that has so much history and lore and detail to it, and I love speculating on every tiny detail of it. And of course, a fanfiction writer, you do want to have canon in mind. But even then, I always want every opportunity to have to just gush about the series and how much I love it and how much I love speculating on it. Especially since, well, it's just so interesting and detailed. It's just everything in the world as well. So having Rahab having a bit more attention, let's say, even if it's just one moment, it would be very interesting and add a bit more layers as well. Especially since, if Cain would encounter him, and of course we have a scene between them showing how close they are, that would definitely be interesting to see. Especially since, it's very interesting how Cain just comes to Rahab and interacts with him the most compared to his brothers, even after Raziel's execution and the world just going to hell, basically. Like, out of all of Raziel's brothers, Rahab is the one who goes to them.
Oh no.
And it's just something that I love Rahab for. It's like, what? Kain literally abandoned this empire 1,000 years ago, and no one's heard from him since. You're telling me you kept regular contact with him, and only you? What the fuck did you guys talk about? The latest like coffee blood there was to drink on the market? Like, what the hell is this? Have you tried that cream frappe sanguine? Yeah, it was pretty good, man.
Yeah, I would probably say maybe they did silly stuff like that. But of course, it's just me having fun speculating like you are. Maybe they also, yeah, considering they share worldviews like their feelings on fatalism and such. Maybe they had their it talks about philosophy and life and everything. Especially again, they do live in a world that's just going to hell and how they view everything. And of course, just everything they must have interacted about. Even the fact that yeah, Rahab and his brothers were Seraphim, weren't they? But Rahab also doesn't seem to care much in a way, which is definitely interesting. Maybe he doesn't know what he did in his previous life, but yeah, that was my previous life, but I accept who I am now, even if I don't remember, which is definitely interesting as well. Which also maybe Kain, considering he knows the history before everything, before he was born in the ancient vampires, and technically speaking, maybe the Hilden too, but I don't know. So it's just me coming up with ideas and scenarios, and speculating too, because it.
The big thing is that I read a lot of Edgar Allan Poe, and Edgar Allan Poe is more notorious in the goth world just because he writes like a lot of depressing themes. But the main thing he's known for creating is an unreliable narrator. So when it comes to Edgar Allan Poe, you can read his stories over and over again, and I really love it.
Yep.
Mostly because you can interpret it multiple ways. So that's why when it comes to Legacy of Kain, I do the same thing. So when people go, wow, Freezers, you really like thought out this lore and stuff like that, it's like really not much. It's just I think about it a lot. Like, what does this person mean by this? What does this person mean by that? Because like, I could take it at face value, but then I could take it with context. Like Rahab saying that he met Kain on face value is like, oh, okay. So you talked to the man who murdered me. That's great. But then when you start to look at the context, you're like, wait a minute, he's been gone for 1,000 years and no one's seen what. Why the fuck is he talking to you? Like, what's so interesting about you that he has to talk to you?
I wish. Well, one question is, and this might be a silly question, but do you guys know anyone that may have been on the Crystal Dynamics team? Any of the writing staff? Anything like that?
No,
So
but
we
I
can
know
get
that
our answers.
they're actually very active in the community though. So
Yeah.
you can probably run across them once or twice.
That'd be
Yeah, especially
awesome.
considering the survey they had a while back, which I sadly missed on. But yeah, that was a thing that did happen, especially since yeah they themselves do still show enthusiasm for the community, or obviously the series too. But and not to mention yeah they must have had the survey for a reason, especially since yeah they share her enthusiasm still for the series as much as the community does, and they of course did want to take time with their day, or at least as long as the survey was up, to ask, hey, why do you like the series? Is there some, and maybe fill out these notes. Maybe you could do something interesting with it in the future, which is definitely interesting.
So
Especially, yeah, that's
was
them
it
reaching
in
out to the community just to talk to them.
was it the in our community
Yeah,
that you found
and
out
even
about this? Like someone
yeah, it was
posted.
You'll look for the person named Raina Audrin.
Raina Origins, like the one of the mods, I think, or one of the
Yeah,
admins,
she's the
yeah.
one who was in the interview with the guy who is one of the lead artists.
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm.
just
And
yeah.
literally during their interview, they just watched him drawing Rahab Zephon and all these characters.
It must have been so cool. I think I might have stumbled across. I think she might have streamed on Twitch at one point. But yeah,
It
like
was YouTube, I believe.
or YouTube or something. But yeah, I'm familiar with them because I know that they post there. But in the past, but like yeah, that would be awesome. And
So
that's
if
yeah.
you would message her and stuff, maybe she'll link you a contact or not. I'm not sure.
Yeah, perhaps.
Oh, maybe. Um,
But yeah, Crystal Dynamics may not have done anything specific with the series for the past 20 years or so, except maybe, yeah, Dark Prophecy, Dead Sun, and Nosgoth, perhaps. But they still do absolutely show enthusiasm for the game and everything, especially when you watch their documentary that came on YouTube, again, even 2 years ago. But yeah, especially when they go into the history of the series, the development of everything, and the history, especially from how it went from being Silicon Knights to purely be owned by Crystal Dynamics and what they did with it, and even also the fact everything between that, the character development of the characters with Raziel and his arc, and with Kain too, and how they go from one point to another is definitely interesting, especially with how Amy handled everything. And maybe off topic for a bit, but apparently Amy still thinks to this day it's her best work. Apparently, everything else you made for after working on Defiance, going to Naughty Dog, Jack 3, Jack X, and the first 3 Uncharted games, you still think this is your best work. I find it so interesting with how you're so proud of it because of the story you wrote and how it mixed in with the gameplay too. Which playing the game, yeah, it gets ticked with how sometimes it comes from the camera and controls and everything, but I still find it so interesting that, yeah, you built this world. This was something you had so much enthusiasm to create, especially for the time you were making it too, which is definitely something interesting as well.
it's probably like
Oh.
I don't know. I'm speaking just for myself here, but you guys might agree with me. It's like it's probably my favorite take on. It is my favorite take on vampires in fiction. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head that compares to it. And if I did, I mean, Vampire Dark Ages, but Legacy of Kain's more interesting to me.
I would say for the
Blade,
longest time, yeah.
Blade, Helsing, Legacy of
Yeah.
Kain is cooler to me. Like, I don't know.
Legacy of Kain is cool, but for me, I'm just a very old school guy. Even though I'm only younger than you.
Well, Dracula.
But
I mean, Dracula's cool
yeah.
too. Dracula, Ravenloft.
Dracula is
Like-
definitely iconic.
For me,
Yeah.
the thing is about original vampires I really, really love is that they're supposed to be ugly monsters. They're not this Twilight stuff where they're beautiful.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, screw Twilight.
They're
This one
supposed to be these ugly, grotesque predators that just are very unearthly. They act very unhuman-like. And that's something that Legacy of Kain somewhat captures with the way that they look, captures it with the way that they act, but then elevates them above humanity. It shows them like in this different light entirely.
Yeah. So, would you
Yeah.
say that Legacy of Kain isn't necessarily like your favorite vampire fiction? Then would you say it is Ravenloft or Dracula, that type of thing? Then
I would say, especially with how they take the concept of a vampire and how it felt. Again, I'm speaking as somebody who, for the longest time, maybe it's also because I'm also a squeamish person, wasn't big on vampires, and yeah, Twilight definitely didn't help. But I would say Legacy of Kain, especially when I got into it, by the time I did, wanted to try something different, and of course, as somebody who really likes obscure, forgotten media
Yeah.
and older games as well. Well, I mean, in my first ever console I owned on my own when I was a kid was a PS2. Keep in mind that was around 2012.
2012.
When I was, yeah. And even to this day, I love collecting retro consoles like the PS1. Even that's how I was able to play Soul River 1. Even that's how I'm playing through it.
Mhm.
But aside from that, I would say Legacy of Kain definitely redefined vampires for me in very specific, different ways. That yeah, you can tell these very interesting stories with vampires, especially, and especially with Tales of Morality. That, yeah, with
It's
everything to
also
do with them being vampires and everything,
the
and not to
medieval
mention just
element,
everything the story told. Yeah, true.
because they're like swinging swords. You know, it's that element of it as well. I just love the idea of the Soul Reaver as well. This vampiric sword that's you have like weapons like this. You know, like in Soul Calibur, you have Soul Edge, and it's very similar. And then you also have Frostmourne in Warcraft. Very similar idea. There's something very. It's just this vampiric sword. It, it's just such a cool idea, and the fact that everything is sort of tied into it as well. Um, the wraith version of it as well. Like it's just I haven't seen vampire fiction do something like that, where it's like it's really blending together the medieval fantasy as well. So
For me, I would probably say Warhammer.
Warhammer.
And
I
the only
guess, I
reason
guess you're right
why,
there.
the only reason why is only because with the Legacy of Kain series, they just don't have enough content out there for me to
Yeah.
enjoy the other vampires. Like, you only play as Kain and Raziel. The Nosgoth game was an interesting step in a direction that I would be more into, which is like exploring different types of vampires. Like, I want to see what a vampire clan looks like. I want to see what they do. I want to see how they act. But Legacy of Kain never really goes that direction. It stays very story driven by a singular person narrative. It doesn't go anywhere outside of that realm.
Yeah, true. And even, yeah, I did talk about Rahab earlier and the fact that he's definitely interesting, but technically speaking, their stories in a way, yeah, we do see them when they were still Seraphan, but the story kind of ended in Soul Reaver 1 with how they, or at least their life story in universe anyway, with how they were all killed by Raziel as well. We don't get to see much of them. We only get hints and details about what they're like, their relationships with each other were like in a way, but
So,
never
yeah.
anything specific. So yeah, part of me would want to maybe write stories around them, but at the same time, yeah, their story is totally over in a way. So maybe there would be a flashback or something that shows them, but maybe yeah, their story is definitely kind of finished in a way. Like maybe speaking of Mobius again, he technically speaking did permanently die in Defiance, which also is a thing I thought about. He technically, maybe because he is immortal and the Guardian of Time, maybe he does revive himself in a way, especially when working for the Elder God. And even after getting his head chopped off by Kain and Blood Omen 1, he still came to Raziel maybe, or maybe it was a different version of Mobius throughout time and space, or at least he sees time and space in
It might
different
have been a
directions and how it
different
goes, different
timeline,
rivers
maybe.
of time. Maybe. I just think it's so interesting how Mobius came back so many times and how he's able to orchestrate everything until his end in Defiance. I find that so interesting about him. But yeah.
He's a sneaky
Otherwise,
man. Love him.
yeah, very sneaky, manipulative man who is definitely also another character that has had a lot of interesting layers to him.
Also,
The
that
big thing
staff.
is those that.
Yeah.
Hmm?
Like the staff. What is the origins of that staff? Like, how did he come across
No idea.
this? Yeah. It's like a
Considering,
snake orb thing, yeah.
I'm wondering maybe, and that's just me coming up with a hypothetical theory. Considering, yeah, he did grow up around vampires, and they were expecting him to be another guardian, and maybe they must have given him the staff, maybe, or maybe he found the staff through other means. But again, that's just me coming up with theories here, or speculation. At least that's a thing I'm just coming up with on the spot, just thinking about anyway.
Yeah,
Just
which
letting
is
my
fine.
imagination fly because yeah, it's definitely interesting to think about.
It's what it's all about in the Legacy of Kain community as well.
Yeah.
That's another beautiful thing about it is a tragedy, and it sucks that the story is kind of unfinished, quote unquote.
Yeah.
But the beauty that comes from that is that we get to speculate now. We get to kind of rewrite, you know, do these pen and paper tabletop games,
Yeah.
and theorize and come up with our own ending. And your ending can be completely different to mine or Freeze's,
Yeah.
and that's completely valid as well. And we can have multiple endings as well, because you know, that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That was one of the big things that do you read your video game manuals at all?
Back in the day, I used to, like, you know, Pokemon
Same.
Trainer's Guide, and I'm pretty sure I did for Legacy of Kain.
So anytime I do lore videos and stuff, people always go like, "Where did you get that information? Where did you get that? That's not in the game. It's in the game manual."
Oh, it's in the manual.
They put a lot of lore in the manuals, yes, and you can actually find the manuals in PDF form, thankfully. But Soul
Yeah.
Reaver 1 manual talks a lot about like how the clans operated, and it's really interesting because it talks about how between Terrell, Raziel, Duma, Zephon, and Rahab, and Melchiah's clan was the weakest. And Raziel talks about in the game manual about how there were times that small minor clans almost overthrew Melchiah. So the other clans would kind of help him out a little bit. So it's like, okay, that's interesting. And that's something that I play with a little bit on my game is like, what if you do create your own clan that's so powerful enough it becomes part of the Council of Clans because you overthrew Melchiah? It would be interesting. It's something that you can play around with, but it also raises questions like, what are minor clans? Are you telling me that there's other vampire species coming out? Where are these vampires coming from? Or are these simply vampires who pretty much my goal is to explore that.
Oh
It's
no.
just every time I talk. That's all it is.
Really speaking, when I talked earlier too, I think it's just something that just happened somehow. Oh, it's always Discord problems.
So what didn't you hear so I can repeat it?
Yeah. Was it in the manual or the tabletop thing? Yeah, clans.
Yeah,
When it came
you were talking about Melchiah.
when it came to the video game manual for Soul Reaver 1, it talks about how Melchiah was the weakest clan, and there were times where his clan almost got overthrown by minor clans. Now that's interesting. So that's why I put it in my game that players can make their own clans, and you can possibly become so powerful that you can overthrow the Melkahim.
The Melkahim. Oh, that's Melchiah's clan.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting.
So
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
that was it. That's what I was gonna say in response. I was gonna say, like, you know, in Vampire the Masquerade and Dark Ages Vampire, there's this thing called Diablerize, when you can go up a generation by basically feeding on another vampire that's more powerful than you. What if Melchiah, in order to, you know, he knows he's the weakest clan, like if he took it a different way and ended up diablerizing another clan to make himself more powerful, that kind of thing. I guess in my head I'm kind of like, okay, he's considered the weakest clan, but that doesn't necessarily mean that will always be the case. I don't know what you think of that, but
So the big thing is that Melchiah even points it out in Soul Reaver 1, is that the main cure to his affliction is that he has a weak soul. He doesn't have as strong of a soul like his other brother. So if he does end up cannibalizing one of his brothers, he would be able to actually stop the rot of his body, because his soul is so weak that his body's just decaying.
Would that
Mm.
imbue his soul as well as his vampire powers?
Well, it would give him the powers of whoever he absorbs. So in Zephon's case, he'd be able to climb walls and crap.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, especially considering when you think about how Raziel gains their abilities when he kills them. Maybe that would happen to Milkaya too if he did that himself. Yeah, when you think about it.
That would be pretty nasty, though. Just, you know,
Yeah.
you're inside a cave and all of a sudden a slap of meat just falls from the ceiling. You look up and it's a guy's just like skin that just sloughed off.
Yeah. Absolutely disgusting.
Also, yeah, just like coming back to your pen and paper like RPG, like there's so much that can be done with it, with you know, different ideas, like even if it's just in that setting. Because I've always tried to kind of twin it, or like if I thought, okay, if I'm gonna run Legacy of Kain, I'm gonna do it in Dark Ages Vampire because it just makes the most sense. Like I've got the book on my shelf right here, but now I've found your tabletop RPG system. I'm actually, you know, down the line or something, I'd be interested to check it out.
Oh, that's totally fine with me, yeah.
Is it D6?
Have fun with it.
Is it like D6?
D6.
Really nice.
I did D6s only because, like, it's easier for people, like, because, D20s and stuff, you would have that if you were, like, a D&D player and stuff. But if you're just some guy who's never played something like this before, you probably got a set of, like, D6 dice from, like, Yahtzee or something like that, whatever game you were playing.
Or if you are familiar with these RPGs, you know, if you know what you're doing, you probably got some dice lying around somewhere. But like
And
or you can easily acquire some. Or if you're playing online, just use a
dice roller.
dice
Yeah.
rolling app or something. Yeah. Because
There's a dice roller on my server, so all you gotta do is like activate the button, type in /2d6, and boom, it rolls the dice for you.
yeah. So like with
I even put special items on the bottom of the codexes, and there's special items specific to specific races, and then there's special items that are just for all of the races. And I did
Nice.
put the Blood Omen 1 items in there, like I put the Wraith armor and stuff like that. I put a lot
sweet.
in there.
Did you stat the Soul Reaver, or is that not included?
I did not put that in there because Kain does not let that thing go, so I'm not. Nope,
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
touching that.
Fair
I
enough.
don't even imagine him letting it go like at all, so I don't know.
He's got a firm grasp on it, and like for Raziel, at least you know when he was still up and about, it would have been like the Wraith Blade. So there's no one getting their hands on that other than him or Kain. Yeah.
But yeah,
in terms
creating
of
character is very easy. I don't like D&D and Vampire the Masquerade because it
Is it
takes like an
D10?
hour of just research just to make your fucking character.
to making your character,
Way
yeah,
too
but
long.
the point by D10, what generation you're playing. I've always like thought like, how can we speed this up a bit? Because I encountered this at university all those years ago. Sitting down with friends or trying to sit down with friends, and like I didn't quite understand. I tried to read through the book as much as I could and just trying to explain the rules. And it would be good if it was just a little bit more kind of easier for people who don't tend to play RPGs, could get their heads around it more.
That's why I kept mine very simple. It's just you add one skill point or one stat point. That's it. Or you could do a trait, and if it's a negative trait, you give yourself +2 to a certain stat. So you could you could do this one negative trait. It's so funny. It's called Warts and All, and what it does is it permanently locks your charisma to 2.
Okay.
which is just crap because your charisma is supposed to be 5. So now you're locked at 2, and it can never go any higher than that.
Wow.
So it's gonna be really funny. Because I was telling my players, I was like, if you have that trait, I'll literally make it where some people will just straight up die if they look at you because you're so damn ugly.
Right.
Mm.
But yeah, like the Vampire Masquerade and Dark Ages, they have the D10 system. I know it works for their percentile thing. I really like the obviously the fluff, the lore from those books, because it, when you read it and then it brings back sort of, it makes me think of Legacy of Kain, and that's why I've always thought like this would be a nice pairing. But it's nice to know that in future, if I do want to do Legacy of Kain, I can turn to your pen and paper that you've created.
Yeah, I've kept it very simple. So the goal is that I would just create basically a template, and then people can modify it however they wish. If they want to increase the modifier stats or make the game harder, they could do it. Everything's pretty open for you to change however you wish.
Thank you. And yeah, thanks for posting that link, Aqua, to the Crystal Dynamics documentary. I haven't actually seen that one.
Absolutely no problem.
I guess it would be just finding that
Yeah.
particular section where they're going into. It's probably going to be like 99. Well, actually.
Actually, really early on in the video. Let me check out the video again. Especially when they talk about Legacy of Kain and the series as a whole and the characters as a whole, which, by the way, I didn't answer who my favorite characters were. I think they will probably be our main protagonists, honestly, because they're so interesting and cool and layered in their own unique way. And also character design perfection and everything. And just how
Yeah,
the
like
character arcs progress and grow and
they
everything.
just tick every box, like character design, voice acting, cool weapon that they use, cool powers. You know.
Yeah.
I loved the fact that the end of this series, like, they both had psychic powers. They both had telekinesis. It's like, we're vampires, we can now just telekinetically throw people. We can, even with all our other powers, you know. And it makes you think, like,
Yeah.
if we did get that Dark Prophecy game, just how many other cool powers, like, Kain would have had. Now, you know, kind of like in these Dark Souls games, you have like sword arts or like weapon abilities. So like, even though Raziel is gone, he is effectively the sword now. He is the spirit within the sword. He is literally the Soul Reaver.
Yeah, the
He
ghost
can
and the sword, even.
He can
Oh
still
boy.
have powers
Yeah.
and influence Kain, and Kain could like level up those powers, or you know, I was just thinking now in that Dark Prophecy game, he could literally have an attack. Kain could have an attack which turns his Soul Reaver from a physical to like a spectral, you know, just like Raziel's iconic one. Like we could have Kain using Raziel's Wraithblade. I think that's a really cool
Just
idea.
do the Shadows of Mordor thing where Kain strikes and then Raziel's ghost appears out of him and strikes the other guy.
Yeah, that could work as well. And obviously when Kain falls, you know, and goes into the spectral realm, he could use the Wraithblade. I don't know. Because it was nice to
I
see...
sent you
Yeah.
I sent you a list of the vampire magics that I worked on in case you're interested in magic. I made a lot of spells, and some of them were based on the Blood Omen one, like Energy Bolt. Energy Bolt's in there. Shield's in there.
Nice.
Definitely cool.
Yeah,
My favorite was the...
You've really put a lot of time and effort into this. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
One of my favorite was the kamikaze crap that Kain had in Blood Omen 1, where he just pulls blood out of everybody around him on the TV screen.
Yeah.
It was like, what is this? So I put that in there. I was like, yes, this is good blood magic. Let's do it.
You know how when they sort of drain blood from a distance and it's like,
yeah, I put that in there.
like the
yeah.
Yeah, the blood gouging, I think it's called. I don't know what it's called, but I find it so interesting that this is an ability they have. Usually we just have vampire versus straight up biting a person's neck, which,
yeah.
characters like Kain do that, but I think interesting how just held in the air or from the ground and they just suck the blood just out of their body telepathically. And so that's definitely interesting and different and unique. I would definitely say that. I've never seen that before.
It's like near the bottom of the page, but it's literally the first spell of blood magic. It's called Bring Me a Drink.
Yeah. It's like
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't know, treating people like juice cartons, basically. But I think maybe in one of the Blade movies that happened potentially, or I feel like I've seen it somewhere. Actually no, I'm thinking of the Blood Omen first cutscene with Vorador, because he does it there. If you remember.
Yeah, he does.
It's also the first time we even see that ability being used in the game too. The fact that he literally just opened up the game, basically being introduced to Vorador, and of course him massacring the Pillar Guardians at the time as well.
Malik.
Oh, and that's one of the first. That's
Because it's just making me think of that cutscene, yeah, where they're like, Malik, come help us.
Yeah, it's also imagine the terrifying situation they must have been in, and also calling for help and everything, and then they're just massacred one by one, because Malik, well, definitely took a while to arrive, and even in Soul River 2, yeah, that's explained why, but yeah.
We didn't really talk much
also
about
the first
Malik,
time
yeah.
we see. Yeah, we didn't.
He's not important.
Well, he is important in terms of, the context of the story in Blood Omen 1, and even when we see him in not Blood Omen 2, Soul River 2, I was going to say. But yeah, what I was going to say is, that blood gouging thing that Vorador does, that's when we first see the ability in the game specifically, and the fact that, we're definitely going to be using that ability later, aren't we?
And he's wielding the Soul Reaver as well. I think he is.
That's not the Soul Reaver, no.
Is it not?
There's a reason.
Oh wait, no.
The...
You're right. It's Vorador's own heirloom.
It was his own unique sword.
Own unique sword, yeah.
It was his own. It was his own unique sword that they even changed the appearance of, just to have the both swords be more different from each other and not be confused.
Yeah, sorry, I was confusing that in my head. It's been a while since I've seen the cutscene. For some reason, I was imagining him.
One of Vorador's spells is something I put in the game. It's literally the second spell in blood magic. It's called Flay. Because there's a spell that Vorador does where he casts a ball and one of the Pillar Guardians just turns into a bone skeleton just covered in blood.
Yes, I know that one, yeah.
I even thought about
You're like,
that.
whoa, that guy just...
Yeah, I made that
like
a spell in the game where if you do it, you just blow someone up.
And then it's just a skeleton.
Yeah.
Yeah, entirely speaking, also do use that ability in Blood Omen 1, and I definitely did think of that ability, especially when Vorador definitely blasted the lady calling for help, so yeah.
Pretty,
definitely brutal.
I think back then, maybe if you were experiencing it for the first time, even just the first time you may have seen that cutscene, that was definitely a moment where you were like, okay, that's... That could be like horrifying, like I can't believe that just happened.
Yeah, even you said I'm not sure if you said it earlier, was it Blood Omen 1 or
Soul Reaver
scared me
as a kid,
that.
yeah.
I see. But I can
Blood Omen
definitely imagine.
Too,
yeah. I just think about, especially from the time it was released, and I'm also just looking at perspective from it as a story as a whole as well. Especially since, I didn't exactly experience the story in a very traditional way, like I'm sure a lot of LOK fans did. From looking at videos on YouTube to looking at those cutscenes in Defiance, and then watching the entire cutscene compilation by YouTuber Jodas, I think he's called, and also River 1. And then then I eventually finally checked out Blood Omen 1 basically because of, well, I was just going to watch a walkthrough as a movie basically, but then I decided, oh, maybe I should go for other means, and I see Dark Lord Dash doing his thing, and I just, oh, I'm really engaged in what he's doing. I like what he's doing, especially since I really like YouTubers that do the things he does, describing it like he's telling a story or something, especially when he's well going through the game and of course showing gameplay and cutscenes and how everything blends in together as well. It's really engaging and cool. Well, and it definitely does help, at least it did for me, catch up with the series, especially when I was still so new to it, and I really wanted to catch up with the series, especially when looking at the first game and the entire series even, just to be sure I understand everything before going on to the rest of the series.
Did you read the
Yeah.
comic book? Because I came across that.
It's
within the last
a
year.
retelling of Soul Reaver 1. Yeah.
There are
Yep.
two comics actually, one promoting Soul River 1 and another promoting Defiance, and it's supposed to be
Yeah.
set. Both apparently were supposed to be set before the respective game, which I find to be very interesting too. And I think I read some of the pages. Maybe I did read the Soul River 1 comic as a whole, especially since I think all the pages even exist in the fandom wiki too. Which, yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely got them. It was around the time, I don't know if you know Tomb of Dracula, that Marvel series. That's also quite. It's a bit more kind of cheesy, hammy, but it was around that same time, and I've just seen now. I've got the Defiance one and the Soul Reaver comic as well.
Don't think I've heard about it.
Tomb of Dracula.
I don't think I've heard of that series.
It's if you like vampires, like check it out. It is Marvel Comics. And it starts off in this very old school sort of style to everything. But that is the first like introduction of like the character Blade, which you guys probably know.
Yeah.
But I thought I liked Tomb of Dracula. I didn't finish all of the comics, but from what I read of it, I enjoyed it. But the Legacy of Kain comics, it's a shame that there's only 2 of them.
I honestly wish they made more comics because, well, not only will we have more, maybe we would have had more supplementary material to know more about the characters and the world and everything, but we only have these 2 promotional comics, sadly.
That's it, yeah.
Which are still interesting, especially with Defiance, literally delving into the mind of Kain before Defiance even, and events leading up to that point.
Yeah, you had some quite cool art in both of them as well, and I just, it's like with any, like the other parts of the media, you just kind of just wish there was more, You're seeing shows like, The Last of Us and Fallout, and you've got the Uncharted movie. Just, if it was handled well, like a live action, it can be done. It is possible to get, the right makeup, the right actors, the right practical effects, special effects. We've had like the Lord of the Rings movies and things like this, and it's like, for a 2.5-hour film or something like that, or a TV show or something like that, like, it is possible. We've had the Witcher TV show, we've had, things like this, and it's like, I guess the question I'm asking you guys is, would you be cool with a live action Legacy of Kain show if it was done, well, or if it was, or a movie?
If it was made by the right people, I would absolutely want that.
Henry Cavill as Kain, yes.
Can anyone else do
it? The main issue I see is that we already see it with the Witcher series, we see it with the Obi-Wan series. Directors today don't follow source material.
Yeah, it sucks.
And
with a series like this, you really need to. You need to.
Yeah. And that's sort of something that you have to always keep in mind of what you're asking for big corporations is that they're going to look at this from a data chart perspective. And they're going to go, Kain, Raziel, this is 2 men we're talking about. We need like a woman in here. We need a bunch
Well,
of
yeah,
kids involved for no
Ariel,
reason.
but yeah, like no kids. There's no other than the daughter of King Atmar. You could maybe do that, but
Yeah, and even then, we don't even know how old she was, I think. Or at least.
She was
was
just a
was she a
girl.
fully grown
Knows what
woman
that
or was
means.
she a little girl?
She was a girl.
Okay, all right.
So that's sort of the problem is that like they need certain check boxes. And I mean,
And really,
I'm
yeah, you
not
need.
some like crazy political nut job, but it's just that you can't have a certain film that's specifically just a bunch of like white guys just chilling around.
I personally like to think if you want to go for a faithful adaptation, I feel like I always go for, at least if we're going for a live action thing, I always look for the Guillermo del Toro Hellboy movies. I absolutely adore those movies, especially with how they,
Yeah, they're cool.
maybe they were not 100% faithful to the comics, but like one person described, someone I used to watch who was also a Hellboy fan, and is sadly the reason I got into the series in the first place, especially thanks to these movies. They said they're at least 90% accurate, from Hellboy's looks to Abe looking the way he does, and even, well, just how they built up the world. It's still Guillermo del Toro's unique vision, but it's still him being a big Hellboy fan and doing the best adaptation he himself could do as
To
a
be
fan,
honest,
especially.
you're right. I think like Guillermo del Toro, his sensibilities for some of those films are really good, and you know, I was interested to hear about him maybe do some of the like Lovecraft, Cthulhu stuff and things like
Yeah.
this, and like you can see that in his was it his Cupboard of Curiosities?
Let me see.
Yeah.
I was trying to look it up.
It's
Cupboard
kind
of
of,
Curiosities, you said?
I think Cupboard of Curiosities, or it's basically like
Cabinet of
cabinet, yeah.
Curiosities. Yeah.
So if you check that out, you might like that. But I also thought of Mobius's name. It's Richard Doyle. That's the voice actor. Richard Doyle, great guy. He would, and then that's the other thing. It would need to be kind of these actors portraying them in the games are just so iconic.
Yeah.
Like Simon Templeman and stuff. So if you were to recast, I don't know, if I was the casting director, I would need them to be like as close to or as, you know, amazing performance as those guys, you know, as, you know, Tony J as as the Elder God, or, you know, Michael Bell as Raziel. And
Yeah, especially when they're so hard to top even.
it's hard to top them.
Uh-huh.
But it's always interesting to see new spins on certain bits of media. So it's unlikely. But like, even if you take a franchise like Metal Gear hasn't had a film yet, but that might happen. That is definitely more of a popular franchise than, say, like some of these forgotten franchises like Soul Reaver, Legacy Kain, or like, for me, like Oddworld. I always put like Oddworld together.
Oddworld, yeah.
Legacy Kain, because it's one of those kind of forgotten gems, and it's a whole world inside. It's like
Stranger's Wrath, baby.
Yeah, Oddworld and Nosgoth. They're worlds from your childhood. They're like dreamlike worlds that these creators have made from your childhood, which
Wait till you hear
always
about
stay with
Kingdom
you.
Under Fire. Oof.
Kingdom Under Fire.
Oh no. Don't tell me, Roy, you were up with me this whole time and now you're gone. Oh no.
What?
Kingdom
Doesn't
Under
know Kingdom Under Fire? Oh man.
Oh, I'm sorry. I've heard of it.
Hmm. I
Is
know
that
definitely
a
heard
big
of it
one for
thanks to
you?
you, Freezer.
Is that a big one? Like a, it says it's a cult heavy metal fantasy action strategy game.
Oh, it's an awesome game.
Is this like hits you in the nostalgia for you?
Oh, definitely. That's where my picture comes from.
Oh really? Okay.
Oh, I didn't think I knew that. That's cool.
Yeah, you can fight liches and stuff. And the lich, which my photo is called Devald. And he's an orc lich. But he's very interesting because he's like very emotionally removed from just about everything he says.
Okay. So was it the Crusaders that you played, or was it the original game?
Crusaders, Heroes, A War of Heroes, and 2. 2 sucked, but A War of Heroes was interesting. At least it's basically StarCraft, Warcraft, or strategy game. Really, really difficult.
Okay.
But Crusaders and Heroes is where the game like shines like a diamond.
Nice.
Crazy big battles, fantasy, medieval setting. You got mortars blowing up everywhere. You got giant scorpions marching in. Oh man, it's great. Good times.
Does sound cool. Was there like a good
Yeah.
storyline and world building behind it? Because that's what I like about, you know, Oddworld, Abe's Odyssey, Abe's Exodus, and Stranger's Wrath, and then obviously, you know, Soul Reaver and Legacy Kain.
I feel like there was, but at the same time, I'm a person who looks at dialogue very closely.
Mm.
So it's really interesting. Like it's basically a universe where the humans are fighting like orcs and dark elves, and they're called the Dark Legion, and the humans are called just humanity usually. And it's really interesting because Crusaders is really good. It's a really good starting point because A War of Heroes is just a brutal game to play because of how old it is, and also, you know, it's a strategy game. But Heroes is also good, but Heroes doesn't make a lot of sense unless you play Crusaders.
Okay.
But it's so good. You learn like there's 2 human nations, Ecclesia and Hieronidon. And Ecclesia lives up to its name, which is an ecclesiarchy, a nation where the church is the government.
Okay.
And then you got Hieronidon, which are like the countrymen. They're the guys who are just commoners, and they're just holding the front line. And then you got the Dark Elves, which is Veland, who are ruled by vampires. And then you got the Orcs of Hexter, and they're just so damn good, so interesting.
Yeah. Kingdom Under Fire. So, are you familiar with this one, Aqua? Do you kind of have some
Yeah.
nostalgic gems from your childhood, other than Legacy of Kain?
Well, keep in mind again, I got into the series in 2021 when I was just about 20 years old, so it's not really something from my childhood, but one of the reasons I fell in love with it was because of, well, it reminded me of other things that I was really into as a kid. Like, Blood Omen 1, for example, really made me think of another series I remember being really into as a kid, the Heroes of Might and Magic series, if you guys have heard of that one.
I've got a friend
At
that
least
really likes that.
Yeah, at least from how the gameplay seemed to be, was top down, and how the gameplay was set up as well. Well, maybe it's not completely the same, but the aesthetic and the way it looked, it did kind of remind me of that at least. And even then, as I get older and also decided to look into the series and what it was, apparently there was also a way choose a good path or an evil path or something like that, which is, are we going for a morality thing that allocated it even too? At least that's from what I've seen. Anyway, I just thought it was interesting. In which, interesting how something that technically was the reason I got into the series because it reminded me of another thing, and was also something that looked very similar to something LOK was also doing.
Yeah.
It's very funny.
Because in that, aren't you like mixing together lots of things like Greek mythology, uh, heroes of might and magic, so like sorcerers and knights and epic, like like dragons, vampires, you name it, you can have it in your army type thing. I always thought it's like this
Yeah.
army building game, at least on the
Yeah, it
surface.
kind of is. Yeah, that kind of thing tends to also be my favorite kind of fantasy, all these little elements mixing together. I mean, me writing an original story about this sort of thing is basically one of the reasons I love that stuff so much. So yeah, I just love these little elements coming together in this one big world called in Heroes of Might and Magic, and how these different elements that you probably wouldn't see come together as well. And how they create their own unique world because of it.
Is there much of a storyline to it from what you can remember?
Don't think I paid attention to the story when I was a kid, but looking into, again, me just watching videos, haven't replayed the games as of now. At least with how the second game seemed to be doing its own thing. Like it was I think it was kind of a choose your own adventure thing. Either you were for the good side or the bad side, something like that. And I think they also continue that in the third game, even. I think, anyway. Other than that, I think the games I have most memory with are the second and third game, at least.
Do you remember it more for kind of the gameplay and like the options, or is story?
I think it's more the gameplay.
Yeah.
And how it looked and the aesthetics of it.
Yeah. Because I watched a video recently. It was the way someone was describing it as in terms of like story and gameplay. One of them had sort of like the features, kind of like the UI or the user interface was like really good, but then the actual game and the story wasn't as good, and then it was kind of reversed in the other example. So it was the UI or the sort of the game wasn't that good, the sort of user interface, but then the story was really good. So it's interesting how that can happen sometimes with old and new games.
Maybe.
There was one game series that had like really miserable controls sometimes. That could sometimes be frustrating, but I totally overlooked it just because the game was really awesome.
Yeah.
And that was Overlord.
Oh, right, yeah. So some examples you can be like, all right, this isn't like ideal, or it might be even straight up bad, like the actual gameplay and stuff. But I think the way the person described it is like a a game with a good story gives you a reason to play it again, whereas like a game with good gameplay, you're going to replay it, that kind of thing, even if the story isn't that great.
Well, look at Call of Duty, I guess, like Call of Duty or Halo even. It's like, okay, the story is mediocre, maybe even non-existent,
but the
controls
so
feel good,
and that kind of thing. But
and look at what's most popular: brain dead things where people just turn their brains off and they just say, "Oh, this is good for my reflexes." And it's like, okay, that's fine if you don't want to be mentally stimulated or like think about a puzzle and stuff like that. People have their own interest.
Yeah.
But that becomes a very big battle for someone who's making a very story-driven game.
Yeah.
That mechanically may not be that fun.
I'm definitely more in that camp. I like being shown compelling stuff. The only thing in modern gaming recently that's scratched that itch is really like Elden Ring, that's come out in the last few years. Because it sort of checks so many boxes that Legacy of Kain used to. Just engaging characters, amazing world building, well, Legacy of Kain didn't have too much in terms of variety, in terms of like your power kit, but obviously Elden Ring blows that up to whatever you want to do, be magic user, be a priest kind of person, or yeah, sword master, whatever.
I was pure strength, and I ended up still just like 30 like constitution or whatever, and I was just fucking one-shotting things.
Mm-hmm.
My friends would get super mad.
Did you play Elden Ring, Aqua?
No. I think my biggest obsession really in 2022 were either Kirby or Shantae.
Okay.
Though Kirby is definitely, Kirby and Shantae are definitely way more lighthearted, but then we have Kirby having surprisingly dark lore for something that looks so freaking cute. And then we have Shantae that, again, is a lighthearted series, has its goofy moments and its jokes, especially aimed at our older audience too. Definitely a series for teenagers and up as well. But it also has the story of the fact that Shantae is technically speaking being the last of her kind, because most genies, keep in mind she's a half genie, the half human, half genie, but her mom, along with many other genies, are in a completely different world, different dimension, and she never met her mom, and she basically grew up on her own, basically. And the fact that he basically has so much to deal with, from having to defend her town, Scuttletown, from risky boots, the main antagonist of the entire series, to, well, meeting a bunch of different people, befriending them, and even growing a found family bond with her adoptive uncle, Mimic, who, yeah, he's a goofy inventor guy, but he's also very caring, and they definitely have an adorable close bond as a family, even though they weren't a close family until the ending of the first game, at least from what I've seen, because I only played the rest of the series. I've yet to get to the entirety of the first game.
Okay.
But yeah. And then in our latest game, Seven Sirens, yeah, Half Genie Hero and Seven Sirens did take a bit of a break from big stories, but they did tell their unique standalone stories either way, though. And in Seven Sirens, we get to see, yeah, she's not the last of the Half Genies, because you find more of them, and there was going to be a festival dedicated to them until there becomes a mystery of them suddenly disappearing out of nowhere when the festival was about to begin. And we also get to see so many interesting layers to the place they were visiting for the summer and when the festival was going to begin. And we even see, I really don't want to spoil, but we technically speaking meet a character that was important to one of them, a genies specifically, and finding a power, because Shantae gets their powers throughout the story because they're helping each other out and they're lending her power to progress to the story and in the gameplay and everything, and figuring out puzzles and everything. And one of the characters recognizes one of their powers because, hey, I have that power too. And that is a way, I don't want to talk about specifically how they're related to them, because I absolutely don't want to spoil that plot twist specifically. It definitely hit hard, especially since, yeah, most of these characters definitely didn't know their heritage, did they? They just went most of their lives just knowing, yeah, this is my life as a guardian genie, and coming from my background that I came from, and yeah, we just had to learn however we learn to be who we are and how we go about our day, basically.
That sounds interesting. I've definitely seen Shantae, sort of here and there, like as I've gone through gaming, and like it's always kind of been on the radar of like, okay, that looks like a fun platformer. I do like this sort of aesthetic. I've never actually sat down and played it, so it's interesting to hear a bit more about it, because it sounds like there's more to it than just from a surface level of it, that I know about.
Alright, I gotta go. I gotta go.
Nice one.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah.
Nice talking to you.
This was nice. It was nice having you guys here. We can leave it there for now, and thank you for
All right, if you say so.
coming to the interview and for letting me interview you both. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
definitely a pleasure being here, I would say.
If you want to do a stream of just the game that I create, that's fine too. Like, it's not a big deal. I can help walk you through the rules.
Thank you.
It's very easy though. It's very like simple. I try to make it very easy because not everyone's gonna have access to me, obviously. So it's just easier if I write things down in clear directions. But that's sometimes not easy.
I would say though, in closing thoughts though.
Yeah, closing thoughts.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I just say, as somebody who always tries to wonder, darn, how do I get people into the series? Because this is definitely a series that I feel absolutely deserves people's attention, and I take every opportunity to gush about it whenever I'm able to. Especially since, yeah, the series definitely isn't that known compared to other games, and even then, people I talk to know more about Vampire or the Masquerade than they do about LOK too. And I always wondered, man, would there be a remaster someday, or at least a re-release? If not remaster, then at least a re-release. But considering how re-releases tend to go, yeah, it's definitely a mixed bag. Otherwise, I always recommend either finding the game emulating, or even, yeah, watching the cutscenes. If you can't do anything else, might as well do the job you yourself can. And if the company that made the games are probably not going to do anything, despite the fact that they still do show enthusiasm for the series, and especially when you consider Raina Audrin did a full-on HD remaster of Soul River 1, and specifically the Dreamcast version, and cleaned up everything while also adding different elements from other versions like the PS1 version, and cleaned up everything, having it look as good as clean as it possibly could. Yeah, would be. I would say he would definitely have very different ways to get into the series. And of course, I always try my best to describe, because I definitely do want to get more people into the series because it's so interesting, cool, and unique. And I always try my best to describe them how well I can, and also the story. Even just describing Vorador and Janos to a person who knew nothing about the series once, that was something that made them interested enough to want to check it out, which, yeah, definitely interesting. And
Yeah, right.
definitely, yeah. And even describing Mobius being based on Hitler was definitely something that interested people a lot. I can definitely tell you that much. Yeah.
So
I'm
yeah.
not so optimistic usually.
Mm.
And the main reason why is just because I look at pretty much what do people usually gravitate towards. And people usually don't gravitate towards like a really, really heavy story. So
Unless it's Elden
do
Ring.
I think Legacy? Yeah. But do I think that people are gonna really like jump the gun for Legacy of Kain, and like all of a sudden we're gonna see a huge wave of people getting interested in it? Nah, not really. But do I think that some like video game company is gonna come out eventually, like maybe 30 years down the line, and say, "Hey, we have this abandoned IP that we can like
Which,
remake
by
the
the way,
game
is
for"?
dope. Is a very, very good series, and they might be like, you know what? Let's throw some money that way. Let's invest in this,
Yeah.
and then we get some revival.
And then from there, I'm gonna have like my grandchildren look at me like, "Grandpa, how do you know this character already? The game just can't." And I'll be
Back
like,
in my day,
"Yeah."
the Soul Reaver was blue.
thumping my pacemaker, making sure my heart's working. What you see, kids. So yeah. So that's probably the more harsh reality, is only because a lot of people want to do their own thing. Like one game that came out recently was Lords of the Fallen, and that was
Yeah.
exactly a Legacy of Kain based thing, where you're diving between the real world and the spiritual world, and you're just constantly diving back and forth to solve puzzles and all sorts of stuff. That did okay. That was mediocre at best.
Technically speaking, one game, Guacamelee, did something similar, I think. Especially after I got into LOK years back.
I think I remember
The
playing that
aesthetics of the game.
ages ago. I think
So
was there like a spirit world and a physical world, yeah.
Yeah, how do you switch
So
between
that's
both?
like the big thing, is that you're gonna have to somehow draw people to play a game that's very, very heavy with story, and those games usually people don't like to. Like Elden Ring, you may say people are very drawn to it, but it's usually
For
the
the
gameplay.
gameplay.
It's
Yeah,
usually
it's true.
the fun.
For me,
But
I go there for music, for the voice acting. I actually go and find NPCs because I want to listen to their voice lines, and I don't skip the voice lines. I want to hear
exactly,
these
I never
guys
do
out.
that.
Same with
like
like
if
boss
you
cutscenes. I want to listen to each line of dialogue because they just pick the right voice actors, you know.
like when you
So
talk to someone about Elden Ring, they're always talking about, oh yeah, I do this build or I play this kind of character, blah blah. But
I'm
very
the guy
rarely do I
saying,
hear
did you
people
talk
talk
to
about Elden
yeah?
Ring,
Did you
talking
talk to
about
this
crazy things.
NPC or did you hear how crazy that voice acting was by that boss? You know, I'm that guy. Or you know,
Yeah,
I was speaking to Rani
but
for like 10 minutes, or you know that kind of thing.
very rarely do I hear someone say to me, "Oh, those scarab guys are actually from like another realm because they worship a totally different god that doesn't exist in this realm and he's trying to invade here." It's like, "Whoa, where did you get that from?" And it turns out
Yeah,
that's actually might be a real thing.
because Elden Ring does
Yeah.
have
So,
that kind of dichotomy of yeah, oh man, you noob, you're using like a +5 whatever, and then the other side of it being like there's actually a ton of speculation, theory, world building of like what is the Elden Ring and what are the pieces of the fragments of the Elden Ring, all this kind of stuff. And
exactly. Like there's theories that there's there's theories that there's like two different gods trying to invade the world, one of
yeah,
madness and then one of the plague,
yeah,
that like
exactly,
rust plague, whatever. And it's like this is
exactly,
stuff
yeah.
that if I ask an Elden Ring player, I guarantee you they don't know shit about this. Because they just play the game. They're just like, "Oh, you're talking about the Lake of Rot?" Yeah, I just blow by that area. It's like, "Okay, you just play the game." So when you talk about Legacy of Kain, you can't just play it. You have to actually like listen to the story,
It's so
listen.
it's so intertwined. Like, sure, you can play it as an action game, but there's probably, and I hate to say this, there's probably like better action games out there. It's so
Exactly.
tied into the story, but the thing is, it has the capability of having a great story, and it could have even better gameplay. It could have, you know, basically graduate from Defiance. You know what I mean? And Defiance is awesome, but I don't
So
know.
when it comes to my pessimism, it's rooted in that reality,
Yeah. So
which is that people need like a vessel to make them want to pay attention to the story. If they don't have a
mm,
vessel to pay attention to it, then they won't care. Like Assassin's Creed, they just want to stab someone in the throat.
mm.
Story comes second.
So in closing, um thank you both for coming to the interview. It's been really enjoyable, thoroughly enjoyable to interview both
Not a
for
problem.
the Legacy of Kain community.
Absolutely no
And thank
issue.
you very much for your time. But in
Yep.
closing, my last question is, well, firstly, where can people go to learn more about you? And is there anything else we haven't covered that you want to say before we close out?
Mm.
I have my own YouTube channel, Freezer 700, at about 1,300 subs at the moment,
Nice.
and I just cover random lore topics. Legacy of Kain is one of my biggest, but that's not my primary. I do
Yeah.
Warhammer, I do Kingdom Under Fire, I do all sorts of crap. I just cover whatever I like, Elder Scrolls, whatever.
Yeah, that's
But
even. Yeah.
But the main thing that I'm more interested in is just simply creating games and having fun. Because that's always what I want is just to have fun playing games. And that's all I ever like to talk about is like, what made this game fun for me in the past? And why am I not seeing games being made like that today? Like Kingdom Under Fire is a great game. It's fun as hell. Why do I not see more games like that? The closest I get is Dynasty Warriors, but that's not even remotely close.
Mm,
And then when it comes to Legacy of Kain, it's like, why do I like it so much? It's got good story writing, good lore, good world building. Why is it that a lot of games I look at are just terrible? Like a lot of people like Dungeons and Dragons. That's great.
mm,
But then when I see Dungeons and Dragon based games, I notice their world building is very shit. Like there's no holidays, there's no culture, there's no real nothing. So I have no interest in it. It's just
mm,
basically gameplay, and that's all you're hoping that I take from it, gameplay.
mm.
So that's pretty much where you can find me, though.
Yeah.
Thank you. And you, Aqua?
Yeah. Personally, for me, I'm usually on random places on Discord, and but I don't have a server as of now anyway.
Do you have a
Otherwise,
YouTube channel or a Twitch stream?
I I hope to have a YouTube channel, especially well, expanding upon my horizons, and maybe I want to do something similar to Freezer, discussing, you know, stuff like LOK, especially since I take every opportunity to get people interested in the series, even me showing voice acting clips and people going, "Oh, that's really good voice acting," and especially which
Are you
just
practicing
describing
that?
everything. Part
Doing
of me
voice
does
acting?
part of me does want to do voice acting, but aside from that, I'm more or less just working on my own projects as well. And I even have a Tumblr account. That's where I started really on social media, especially
Okay,
yeah,
so
when posting my art.
if people want to check out your art, where can we find you? Do you have a link I could put in the chat maybe, or
Yeah, I'll just try and find my Tumblr account. I haven't posted anything LOKA related yet though, but I am hoping to do so when when I eventually get to it. It's just a really slow process.
okay. Well, I guess
Just,
if
I always like to, I mean, there's a reason I have it as a tagline. I like to make long posts because I'm passionate like that, because sometimes I like to just write so much in one post, or or well, I put so much detail, and sometimes I put so much thought into everything I do, and sometimes I become very indecisive on how I want to make a post and put my art out there as well, and how I want to structure everything. And yeah, so it definitely does end up with me slowing down process more than I have to. But I do stuff on Tumblr when I do so anyway. Otherwise, I'm really active on Discord,
okay, so
honestly.
your Tumblr name is it
It's just
Aqua?
it's just Aqua Loves Art.
Aqua loves art. Okay,
Yeah. I like to
all
keep the
lowercase.
same name. I just like to keep the same name just to have people recognize me.
Okay, so that's Aqua loves art, all lowercase, and Freezer 3000. Is that right?
Yeah.
7,000. And
7,000.
I'm
My
just
bad.
kidding. No, it's 700.
700. My
Otherwise,
bad.
I'm
700.
also on VR. Otherwise, I'm also on VR chat, but that's a different deal. I just wanted to talk about other places I'm at.
Nice one. All right,
I don't
guys.
know. Just wanted to bring it up.
Thank you both very much for your time, and
Yeah.
yeah, I guess I'll see you in the Legacy of Kain community, and yeah,
Yeah. Absolutely no problem.
keep
Yeah.
on being a fan and keeping the series alive, the spirit, and the fan
Yeah.
fiction and speculation theories,
Yeah.
and obviously
Oh,
your pen and paper RPG.
All
speaking of
right.
which,
See ya.
almost forgot.
Oh, yep.
I almost forgot. I also have an AO3 account, which I have not posted anything on yet, but I definitely do want to post stuff like my Legacy of Kain fanfics on there too. And yeah, they're a work in progress. I've been working on them for about 2 years now. But with me working my way up to the series being as slow as it is, but I do want to continue, yeah, I'll post it eventually, especially when I finally have a way to structure everything. I tend to randomize however I wrote the story, but it wasn't until early this year when I finally started thinking, maybe I should start finally working on building that first chapter that I had an idea of for about years of my life now.
So what was
Yeah.
that? An EO3? Is
Yeah,
that
like
is
archive of our own, but I haven't posted anything on there yet. But again, I just have the same name there because I want people to recognize me.
Archive of
Otherwise, I've
Own? I
posted
haven't heard of that.
archive of our own, yeah, but I haven't posted anything on there like at all yet, honestly. And even people have posted Legacy of Kain stuff there too. So yeah,
Okay, well, yeah.
but
Look
not
for
but not
Aqua.
much compared to other fandoms. Hmm?
Yeah, you
Yeah,
can look for Aqua on archive of our own .org. It looks like um for I think this is a fanfic website. Um,
yeah, it's more or less a fanfic website, but I think I've seen people that do post original stuff there too, but mostly fanfics. And LOK, maybe not as big as other fandoms, especially again with how lesser known it is. But it's definitely a bunch of stuff you can find either way, though. Oh,
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't
mm,
actually heard of that website before. But
yeah,
yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you so much for your time. Letting me
absolutely too.
interview you guys, and yeah,
Yeah,
enjoy being a part of the Legacy of Kain community. Thank you both so much for your time.
thank you so much.
And
Yeah, no problem. And
in-
thanks a lot for inviting me along with Freezer.
no worries. You guys made this so entertaining. So thank you. And
You're
yeah,
welcome.
enjoy the rest of the weekend. And
Yeah.
to the audience members, hope you enjoyed having these two amazing members of the community on.
Yeah.